Start of a racehorse. We'll call the meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Fort Myers Beach Town Council. Today is Monday, August the 2nd. All council members are present. Town manager, town attorney somewhere, and all of you here with us this morning. Thank you very much. It's good to be back. We'll start as always with the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We ask for your guiding hand to lead us through today's meeting. May we approach our tasks with wisdom, our members with respect, and our conduct create an environment of cooperation and kindness. We ask that your wisdom guide us as we seek to accomplish the goals on today's agenda. Thank you for the opportunities to accomplish our work this day. Amen.
Amen. Hold on, we're gonna rectify that.
We're gonna rectify that. Remodeling.
All right. Down here. Your hands right there on your. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do you have any oxygen over there? No. Okay. The next item is the approval of our final agenda. The final agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is public comment.
Dave Mason?
Good morning, I'm Dave Miser. I'm here to request the town council to review and overrule a decision made by Steve Wise to deny an amendment for Fort Myers Beach Marina construction permit number 200788. The amendment application was submitted to conform to the Army Corps of Engineers Pier Length permits for docks. The permit amendment was denied by Steve's in his last week at Fort Myers Beach. We didn't have an opportunity to appeal it with him. I want to thank the town council, Mayor Murphy, and town manager Roger Hernstadt for the time they've afforded Curran of Harbor Point to talk with him and review this issue prior to the meeting. With me this morning are Gordon Curran, Barhorst, Josh Maxwell of Terrell Haller Engineering Firm, and Tony Wallace of Stokes Marine to answer any questions that may come up. As a quick recap, Hurricane Irma took down trees along our boat canal. The roots took out our seawall in numerous places. Seawall was fiberglass, built in sometime in the 1970s. Outlived its expected life, was not repairable, and we ultimately replaced it in 2019. At the same time, our captain's walk had been over the water. We decided to move that to a land for a number of reasons, not including water quality issues. Eliminated 160 pilings that were into the bottom of the canal with moving to land. Our docks were built prior to the construction of Harbor Point in the 1970s, possibly 1980. Again, had outlived their useful life, were very deteriorated, and only about half of them were used, so they were many of them were not maintained. The original marina was built with 10-foot wide piers, and most of the boat slips were 10 feet wide, with 24 and 26-foot piers. Marina. The association went through a lot of discussion. We decided to replace and rebuild the marina, which we had to do anyway, just from a stability standpoint. We were having owners actually pilings collapse and go into the water. Our Fort Myers Beach permit was actually issued in June of 2020. It took us 14 months to get the Army Corps of Engineers permit. So we're back and asking that this denial be overturned and that it be approved. Current piers extend no further than the historical protrusion into the canal, which is a requirement of the Army Corps, and that is in compliance with Fort Myers Beach Marine Structures Code. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gordon Curran.
I want to thank you again for communications.
Say your name one time, Gordon.
Yes, Gordon Curran, a resident of Fort Myers Beach, from like 20 years. But just wanted to see if there was any opportunity to respond to any questions that you may have. Talking points out, of course, as well as maps showing the aerial view of the canal prior to its destruction. And again, as Dave stated, all we're simply asking for is that the rebuild not encroach any more in the canal than it did prior to the demolition. And of course, we did not demo that, I don't know if Dave said this, but we did not demo the pilings, the slips, et cetera, until we got approval from the town. So with that permit in hand, we Stokes Marine to demolish the slips. Had not happened, our direction may have been a little different. I would just say that. But we appreciate the consideration and certainly welcome the opportunity to respond to any questions.
Thank you. This isn't really the forum to have a dialogue back and forth, but your points are being made and they'll be handled by the administrator. Thank you.
Joshua Maxwell.
Morning, Joshua Maxwell, Chief Engineer for Trail Hall and Associates, here to speak on behalf of Harbor Point Condominiums Docks as well. Stephen Gordon summarized the primary issues. I'll just kind of clarify a few comments that were made. It took us 14 months to go through the permitting with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. In that time frame, we did receive a permit through Stokes Marine to rebuild the piers as the DEP permit shows at 30 feet. When that permit was in hand, that's when Stokes went ahead and did the demolition. So therefore, when they put in for the revision and the revision was denied for shorter finger piers, it caught everybody by surprise a little bit. And when staff said that it's not being built in the same footprint, that's when it kind of had a little bit of the hiccup. It caught us all a little bit by surprise because we probably, as Gordon said, would have left the finger piers in, but the finger piers had all been removed, so we no longer could build it as it was originally figured. And everything's being done to keep up with the modern boats. Boats today are on average 8.5 foot beam, some 9. Back when these boats were slips were made, 6 foot beam was average, 6.5 foot beam was average. So today's modern vessels weren't fitting in the slips. The community went through. It took us close to 6 months to get everybody to agree on a plan. So we're just asking for permission to build out to the existing preempted area, which is, we went ahead and measured before everything was demolished, so we know where the piling stuck out beyond the seawall. Therefore, there's no increase in pediment into the channel. That basically restore the historic conditions, but in a different configuration.
Thank you.
Mike Cayusa? Sorry.
Guys, how you doing? I'm Mike Cayus. I'm an attorney in Fort Myers. I represent John Surface. John Surface owns 285 Virginia. The town of Fort Myers Beach owns 286 Virginia. I've been talking with Ms. Saunders over at Community Service Administration, and she suggested, since there's not a procedure for this, and let me tell you, I jumped ahead of myself. we want to buy 286. It's a vacant lot. There is no real utility for the town. We would propose that we would have a self-funded, your choice appraiser to appraise the value. It would be a cash transaction. We would pay all the closing costs. I just need a starting point on who to communicate with, because I have Ms. Saunders saying, you know, your best shots come down here, talk to the council to get some type of contact information. I mean, I see it as a beneficial situation. You'd take a non-producing property and turn it into a tax base. I just need some guidance on who to speak to.
Let's say, a counselor could start with the town manager and town attorney.
I'll get with those guys and we'll see where we can go. I sure appreciate it.
Good luck.
Okay. Do you need my card or anything?
Great.
Yeah, I'll get it to you right.
Sharon Faircloth.
I'll give you mine back afterwards, Amy. Oh, there we go.
Morning, town
Sharon.
council members, vice mayor, and mayor. My name is Sharon Faircloth. I'm the owner of Holiday Water Sports, Fort Myers Beach. We've been in business in the water sports and beach furniture vending business on Fort Myers Beach for 30 years. We started in 1991, so we've been doing this a while. We have locations at the Pink Shell, the Best Western, and the Diamond Head Beach Resort. I'm here this morning to ask the council to amend ordinance number 21-03, Sea Turtle Conservation, specifically section 32-113, beach furniture and obstructions. I'm not asking for this amendment lightly. I understand the time and energy it takes to create language for an ordinance. I was a member of Marine Resources Task Force for several years and helped write language, and I've also been in front of this council since 1997, helping to write and various different ordinances. So I do understand how much time it takes, but time is of the essence here. I would like to see this ordinance reviewed and changed before or at the August 16th meeting if possible, because our licenses are due to renew on October 1st. Now, if our licenses are going to be based on this new language, many businesses will not be renewed, I'm afraid. The language in section 32-113 is so strict, it could put businesses like mine out of business. Doesn't allow any man-made objects in the sea turtle nesting habitat, which is defined as all sandy beaches adjoining the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Straits of Florida in all coastal counties and in inlet shorelines of those beaches. Nesting habitat includes all sandy beach and unvegetated or vegetated dunes immediately adjacent to the sandy beach, accessible to nesting female turtles. In other words, no beach furniture, no picnic tables, no wave runners, no trash cans, no rope and bollard post, anything man-made cannot be in the sand in front of a dune on Fort Myers Beach overnight in nesting season. It's for. I'm here today again to ask you to change the language in the Sea Turtle Conservation Ordinance back to the language found in Chapter 14, Article 1, Beach and Dune Management, and Article 2, Sea Turtle Conservation. I've made copies for each of you so you can see what that language was. And that language was adopted in Ordinance 02-29, which was passed September 26, 2002, and has successfully governed our businesses for almost 20 years. The language that you have was written in collaboration with town staff, Steve Haverfield of Turtle Time, and beach vendors. The language gave beach businesses the opportunity to store equipment on the beach in town-approved designated areas. You may stop.
Go ahead, finish
Okay.
up.
The language in the new Sea Turtle Conservation Ordinance will make all businesses move their equipment off the sand at night, leaving many businesses with no place to store equipment, and that will put them out of business. The resorts don't want to have beach vendors putting all their equipment in the parking lots. There is not enough parking on the beach as it is, and it's not feasible. And the amount of time it would take to fully evacuate all our equipment off the beach every single night and put it back in the morning is just unsustainable. It would cost us so many hours. We'd have to start at 6 a.m. and we wouldn't be done till 9 o'clock every night. Just imagine if you owned a store and you had to remove all your inventory in the whole store and then replace it in the morning before you could open. It's a lot of extra work. I watched the January 21st, 2020 Town Council meeting when the new sea turtle ordinance was being discussed. At 3 hours, 3 minutes, and 53 seconds, Vice Mayor Hasselfrost requested staff to add in language regarding beach furniture and equipment transport and jet ski transport, which you can see you have. And to that request, Roger responded, "We will bring back some language." However, the new language titled Beach Furniture and Obstructions does not address any beach furniture or jet ski storage or transport. It simply outlaws it altogether. Again, time is of the essence. I would appreciate if you could bring this agenda item, if we can call it that, forward at August 16th so that this ordinance can get reviewed and hopefully rewritten so that we can work in collaboration together with the town so that our businesses have a designated place, which we have had in the past, to store our equipment. And I also just wanted to note that none of the vendors even knew about this. It only came to light because all of a sudden it started getting enforced within the last couple months. So that's never been the case with the town. The town, we've always worked very closely with the town, the beach vendors to make it all work together. So again, just it's my request to you today.
Hey, Sharon, we have a management planning meeting later this week as well. Maybe we can kick that around a little bit at that and see if there's anything to talk about.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Next.
Wallace?
Good morning. My name is Tony Wallace with Stokes Marine. I'm here on behalf of Harbor Point Condo Marina Docks as well.
Gone out of order, Tony. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to sit down. Okay.
So I'm going to reiterate some facts they already brought up. I mean, we recently received a permit in 2020. We applied for a permit recently with some modifications to it to reduce the width of the actual slip itself. At that point in time, the permit was rejected. At that time, we already had demoed the existing docks, pilings, boat lifts, finger piers, everything. The current plan for the marina outside of what was existing there right now actually reduces the footprint of it. It's less pilings and less docks, as was stated previously, but it's also less slips. It's going from a 67 slip marina to a 55 slip marina, actually reducing the impacts on the overwater structures as well. Recently, like I said, we obtained the permit. We did some other work that was already permitted there, had equipment on site to demo and build the new docks. Army Corps permits, Town of Fort Myers Beach permits obviously required us to move equipment off site, relocate barges, and now we're here to request a review of the permit that was initially approved and rejected upon a revision for a smaller dock. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Next.
On Gucciardo.
Morning, John Gucciardo for TPI. Well, it's finally here. The TIFMB team is requesting approval of our permit for our groundbreaking ceremony, which is going to be scheduled for the afternoon of August the 13th. Many of you will recognize that August the 13th date as in 2004, the anniversary of when Hurricane Charlie swept through and left behind in its wake enormous physical and economic damage to that north part of the island. We are so proud to be part of the long overdue revitalization of that area. And we hope that this will be a catalyst for prosperity and improvement for all. The actual groundbreaking, the shovels in the sand part, will be kicking off around 3:15 that afternoon. And it'll be followed by a catered celebration on our property, which will last until about 6 o'clock. This event will be an outdoor event held under an open tent, and we will be following all of the current CDC guidelines. Unfortunately, because the property in question is a construction site, access to the actual groundbreaking ceremony will be limited to invitees only. But we are pleased to announce that the public, of course, will still have access to the public beach area on either side of our property if they wish to attend that way. We hope to see many of our loyal supporters there that day and to share with us this momentous occasion. For those who are not able to attend, we plan on live streaming the event at our Facebook site. So it is an invitation to yourselves and also to the general public to participate in this. This item, the permit approval, is on your administrative agenda, and I'll be sticking around in case you have any questions or concerns when it comes up at that point. Thank you.
Thanks, John. That's it. Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is local achievements and recognitions. Start down this way this time.
I have nothing. Just a couple of things this morning. I wanted to publicly thank all the various citizens of the Fort Myers Beach who participated in the lighting analysis, if you will, the stakeholder group, the Public Safety Committee, the Marine Resource Task Force Committee. These folks have spent countless hours studying the issues, conveying island concerns to the consultant. And they've done an excellent job, and it's been a great dialogue. I'm not sure yet whether the consultants have actually heard the input from all these wonderful entities, but I'm hopeful. I know my colleagues and I have heard them, and they've been extremely helpful. Efforts are much appreciated. Secondly, I don't normally comment on things outside the jurisdiction of the Fort Myers Beach Town Council. Try to make that a rule, but over the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of activity in Cuba that as a young congressional staffer, when I was just out of school, I had some time, worked for a member of Congress on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I had a chance to spend some time with some of the Cuban dissident community, particularly a fellow by the name of Armando Valladares, who wrote a book called Against All Hope, who spent a number of years, he's an artist, spent a number of years in a Cuban prison, terribly tortured, mistreated for just speaking out for freedom. And I've just been so encouraged these last couple of months by the men and women in Cuba who've had the courage of their convictions at great personal risk to come out and discuss freedom and liberty issues for their country. And it's been great to see the solidarity of many Americans, including many folks here in Florida who've been in solidarity with them through their demonstrations. So to all those folks, I just say Cuba Libre and Godspeed to you all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
I'd like to let everybody know that the Beach Ministerial Association is going to be holding a back-to-school bash August 11th. I know that's not before school, but it's very close to the beginning of school. If you are interested in donating school supplies to that effort, you can contact any of the churches on the island. Exception of Ascension does not participate. So any of the other churches on the island, can contact them. They can let you know what kind of school supplies would be helpful to donate, or you can show up at the event. They're planning on having some entertainment for the kids, and there'll be notices about in the paper, etc.
Good. Dan?
Once again, Councilmember Adderholt stole my thunder with the lighting control thing, but I appreciate his comments, and I'll just piggyback the same thing. Thank you to all those that were involved. I know it's been a long process, a lot of technical data. But personally, I can tell you I've been paying close attention, as I know my fellow councilors probably have as well as the county. So your efforts have not gone unheard. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item, which is the,
Something.
oh, thank you. You make the big money. Bill, if you'll stand up, please. We have I want to, so anybody can pump and circumstance right now. You've been recognized for completing some at Florida League of Cities University. I'll just read the letter that was sent to your dear Councilmember Bill Beach. On behalf of the Florida League of Cities, I am pleased to award the certificate to you for the completion of the Institute for Elected Municipal Officials in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida on June 4th through the 7th, 2021. It is our sincere hope that you found the program challenging and worthwhile. I urge you to take advantage of other training opportunities through FLC University. We also invite you to register for the next offering, and so on. We strongly believe that your attendance at the Institute is indicative of your continued commitment to improving the quality of municipal government in Florida. If we may be of assistance, please don't hesitate to call Lynn Tipton, Director, FLC University, Florida League of Cities. Little certificate here, so we're going to present that to you, Bill, and congratulations for taking that. And every little bit of those are all great classes, great courses, and all the better for taking it, I'm sure.
And I would definitely recommend it to anybody who's newly elected in this kind of seat, because it was very, very informative.
Very good. Okay. Next item is the advisory committee items and reports. I see we have a representative from CELCAB.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Welcome back. I hope you all had a wonderful break. So back to business, but it's really great to see everyone again. Good morning. I'm Barbara Hill. I'm chair of CELCAB, and I wanted to report to you the activities that we had with our meeting last week. So the Cultural and Environmental Learning Center Advisory Board met and voted to recommend $9,000 to fund new programs for both the Mound House and Newton Beach Park. This recommendation to council is in accordance with the strategic plans of 2016 and 2019, which were approved by council. These funds also provide a match of the $9,000 from the Friends of the Mound House to support the program goals for the upcoming fiscal year. It's been nearly 6 years since the Mound House opened to the public, with existing exhibitions and programs that, while successful, have not changed or been updated due to budgetary constraints. It is vital to the success of any learning center and museum that we work to attract and engage new and returning visitors, which is best accomplished through new programs and events. These have been identified in the strategic plans, which we review every 6 months. We also voted to recommend that Allison Geeson, the town's Director of Culture, Parks, and Recreation, participate in the Leadership League program, class of 22-23, for her professional development. As your volunteer community advisory board, we hope you will consider and approve this request for $10,000 in funding during your upcoming budget meetings for the next fiscal year. Respectfully submitted, Barbara Hill. Thank you.
Barbara, does anybody have any questions for Barbara?
How's it going with the CELCAB? You guys have enough to do, or
I'm sorry.
is your committee pretty active? I mean, do your meetings run? How long do your meetings run?
Well, actually, we had a record lack of meetings for the past 6 months. We normally, during the active time when the Mound House was being developed, before it had opened to the public, we were meeting monthly and sometimes bi-monthly. So not meeting for 6 months, we had a lot of work on our agenda this past week. So we look to meet probably at least quarterly, if not more frequently, depending on the agenda items that need board action.
Do you think there's any appetite in the CELCAB to expand your mandate to things outside of the Mound House?
No, at this point, our responsibilities are the oversight of the Mound House and the Newton Beach Park. That's according to what our mandate is, our mission is as an advisory board. Should the council or staff decide that we want to expand this, we certainly can review that. Be happy to entertain any options where we could be more effective.
Do you feel there's an appetite for that within the committee?
I'm not sure. It's just actually not been discussed.
Thank you, Barbara.
So,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
no, it's perfectly fine. I think we're open because obviously we serve the council and we serve the community. So however we can expand and be more effective, we're happy to send in your suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I see John Goggin is here from the Public Safety Committee. John, do you have some comments?
John Goggin, Chair of the Public Safety Committee. We have been quite busy, Councilman Veach, and so unfortunately, you're going to have to, through a report here that's a little lengthier. I'll read it, and after each segment, or during it, interrupt me to clarify anything. Public Safety Committee has reviewed and discussed the results of the Public Safety Survey that was determined to determine prioritization and possible recommendations. Top three issues raised by the respondents to the survey were pedestrian safety, homeless population, and bike traffic, followed in order by policing, street lighting, neighborhood safety. Other issues raised by the respondents included traffic control, specifically congestion, speeding, and middle lane usage, compliance to lights and audible device laws by the bike rental companies, and e-bikes on the sidewalks. Discussions revealed several issues and potential solutions overlap, so a report combines major issues where appropriate. To mention here, it's lengthy because most of these will affect next year's budget, which you're going to start to discuss on Thursday, which is why we put it all in this one report instead of spreading it out. First was policing. On the whole, respondents were very satisfied with the current services provided by the sheriff. Vast majority of respondents felt on the island during the daylight hours, nearly 90%, and to a lesser degree, 68% during nighttime. The deviation to these positive numbers was in the Times Square area. For the nighttime, only 43% felt safe. The reasons for feeling unsafe were primarily rowdy drunkenness, presence of homeless individuals, and poor lighting. Majority of the respondents, 70%, were also satisfied with the response time of the current sheriff resources. Interestingly, although the majority of the respondents feel safe on the island, 69% of the respondents would like to see community policing added to the sheriff's services. But it was evenly split 50-50 as to whether they were willing to increase their taxes to pay for it. As you've been in discussions regarding community policing, we addressed this issue at our July meeting. After discussion with community policing, as would relate to Fort Myers Beach, the committee recommends the council appropriate funding for community policing services in the town's fiscal 2021-22 budget. The majority of the committee felt the number of sheriff community policing resources to be contracted should be left to the council to decide. However, it was felt that two would not be sufficient. Came to these conclusions after discussion with Captain Laylor, provided examples of how community policing would operate relative to Fort Myers Beach. The discussion included the realities of staffing availability, hours of coverage, and the number of issues that can be effectively addressed. Examples of how community policing would interact with the homeless population, education of local businesses and residents to be able to identify and react to issues prior to escalation, enforcement, support for local ordinances such as motorized vehicles on sidewalks, traffic issues, and establishment and support of neighborhood watch programs. Community policing provides the opportunity for regular and repeated interactions with the beach community, builds communication, rapport with residents and businesses within the community, inform them on what services are available, to identify a problem and in turn resolve or escalate that issue to the proper authorities. With regards to the homeless population, they can regularly and repeatedly interact with these individuals, understand their dependencies, identify their hangouts and individual traits, so they can effectively deal with them before or if issues arise. You have to remember that being homeless unto itself is not a crime. Community police and officers' interaction with these individuals will allow visibility and establish a relationship with them with the intent of keeping them from transitioning from a homeless state to criminal activity. As you debate the issue as to whether the contract for community policing, we encourage you to set realistic expectations of coverage to cost for the public. Individual community policing officers will be very effective dealing with issues raised by both the public, both in the survey and to you individually. Their interaction with and education of the public will increase compliance and self-reliance. Support local code enforcement will improve pedestrian safety, and working with homeless individuals and coordinating with other organizations on the island that support the homeless population will reduce criminal activity. Any questions on community policing? Okay. Pedestrian safety. This included crosswalks, bike lanes, bike lights and audible devices, motorized vehicles on sidewalks. Crosswalks. 75% of the respondents felt there were insufficient number of crosswalks. 77% felt the need to add flashing warning lights to crosswalks. 92% asked for improved crosswalk markings. We have tabled the addition of additional warning lights at crosswalks, as it will be impacted by the final design of the crosswalk lighting, which is impacted by the decision on street lighting. Adding to the number of crosswalks, in the past, this discussion with crosswalk changes were deferred by the county pending the completion of the Curran Boulevard construction schedule. Any changes to crosswalk locations will require reconstruction of sidewalks and curbs. Improving the visibility of crosswalk markings, again, should be put in the design coordinated with the crosswalk lighting. So this one, we're holding off until after those other issues are taken care of. Bike lane markings has already been agreed by the council and is currently in active discussions with the county to improve the bike lane markings as per the demonstration model on North Estero Boulevard. No further action by the committee is needed, just appropriation if it's determined the town will pay for the painting. Bike lights and audible devices. There is already a placeholder in the 21-22 budget for acquisition of bells and lights. The committee recommends funding be appropriated in the final budget is passed. After passage, the committee will work with the sheriff, the fire department, and town staff to organize a bike safety day at which these devices and related handouts detailing state and local laws, as well as bike etiquette, will be distributed free of charge. Another issue raised in the survey deals with compliance of bike rental companies and resorts, which provide bicycles without appropriate lights and audible devices. Currently, several of these businesses have bicycles that do not have appropriate lights or audible devices. We'd like the council to instruct the town attorney to determine if any legal authority the town may have to obligate these businesses to add lights and audible devices to their bicycles. E-bikes and other motorized vehicles operate on the sidewalks.
John, I'm going to stop you real quick. If it's appropriate, Mr. Mayor, since just to be sure we don't miss that point, could we agree to potentially discuss that in M&P meeting to see if there's possibilities to work with our town attorney on that particular issue? Of the folks who rent the bikes?
Yes.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay.
So just by way of background, when we first were organized, I think 4 years ago now, reorganized, Tom Gressman, the vice chair at the time, met with every rental company out there, discussed mostly the lights and audible devices, but primarily lights at the time. And the rental companies advised us that since they tell their rental customers they have to have them back by sundown, that they felt it was not necessary. However, we know they rent weekly. We know resorts have them available throughout the day. And so that statement may be accurate, but we don't know if there's legally anything we can do to make them comply.
Well, certainly worth checking into, John.
That's where it needs to be taken further.
E-bikes and other motorized vehicles operating on sidewalks. Only half the respondents knew of the town ordinance regarding bicycle operations. 91% of the respondents felt current signage was inadequate. In addition to the enhanced enforcement that could be provided if you enter into a contract with community policing, there is still a need to improve education of the public. This can be achieved through the town website and other communications, additional signage, and sidewalk markings. It'll also be improved if you were to mandate rental companies and resorts add documentation as part of their rental process, serving to inform visitors unfamiliar with our local ordinances. Any literature that is developed should clearly indicate that any motorized vehicle or device is prohibited on the sidewalks. This would include motorized scooters, skateboards, golf carts, etc. It should also clearly state that motorized vehicles such as e-bikes are permitted if operated in pedal mode without motor assist, and the ordinance does not prohibit motorized vehicles if they're used in ADA compliance. If you're talking about the rental companies, just add that to it.
Hold on, clarification there, John. So you claiming that the ordinance says that if the e-bikes are in pedal assist, they're allowed on sidewalks?
They're in pedal mode without the motor assist.
Out the motor assist? This
So
makes it
what
very
the idea
different.
behind that was, when people first started talking about e-bikes, it was, if I buy an e-bike, I can't use it in the shared sidewalk space. It was determined that if you have the motor off and you are pedaling that bike as any other pedaled bike would be, that it's okay to be there. It's my understanding of the ordinance.
Okay, one of the problems is enforcement, of course. How can you tell whether someone's got it in assist mode or not?
And that's one of the advantages with community policing is they could periodically set up an operation to stop people that are in violation of that, inform them of the law, et cetera.
Thanks, John.
It has been previously agreed that the sidewalk markings on shared sidewalks be painted, indicating a bicycle pathway with direction and speed and a corresponding pedestrian pathway. We encourage you to enter into the interlocal with the county as soon as you can to help reduce pedestrian and cyclist conflicts. These are the markings on the sidewalks. Half the sidewalk would show a bicycle, direction that should be going along with I think 5-mile speed limit is what the recommendation was. The other side would show pedestrian walking. So if you approach them from behind and you ring the bell and you say right, they go like this, which every one of us has been through, and then they jump right in front of you when they determine right is where you want to be. So by putting these markings, it would give a visual education to help people when someone's approaching and they ring the bell to move to the side that doesn't have a bike on it.
Did you notice, I know that we haven't worked anything with the county, but right across the street here now, the signs that the town put up, that they're on the crosswalk signs. So as you're going with traffic, they have those markings on the sign. You're going the other way, they tell you you're going the wrong way to go against traffic.
Yes, and that's an improvement. One thing we've heard from cyclists is because of road construction and just traffic in general on the island, that mostly they're not looking up. They're mostly looking at the road to avoid potholes, to avoid in the road. So that's why the markings on the sidewalk and in the roadway itself is an education. Now, the last on this, this particular topic here, pedestrian safety, jaywalking is often raised as a huge issue on the island, both for traffic congestion as well as pedestrian safety. It should be noted that what is commonly known as jaywalking is not illegal in the state of Florida. Florida law does not prohibit pedestrians crossing anywhere along the street, only that they cross at a 90-degree angle. People that step out in front of taco place up there, do a taco, 5 minutes from the side, 5 meters from the sidewalk and cross over, it's not illegal. So I mention that because the general public continually brings to us, have them enforce jaywalking. Discuss it with the lieutenant, we discuss it with the captain, and jaywalking is not illegal in this.
Just comment on that real quick. Sanibel has a program over there that they use seasonally, where they have paid seasonal workers. I forget what they call them, but they wear blue tops or blue shirt. And they guide, they're up and down Periwinkle there, and they guide these pedestrians to the crosswalks, thereby creating somewhat of a wall where they funnel these folks down there to eliminate jaywalking. I've spoken with Kevin Wayne about it several times. Apparently, it's very successful. So I don't know if anybody wants to, maybe you have, John. I don't know if you've talked to him about that, but it sounded like a worthwhile program that we could probably be an easy fix down by the Times Square area. But, the rest of the island, I don't see it feasible. But of course, bottleneck is what we're worried about. So something to consider.
Follow up with Sanibel, what they're doing there. It's primarily Mid-Island North.
Yes.
Is where it runs into.
Yes.
Homeless. 70% of the respondents feel the town needs to do a better job in dealing with the homeless. It's recognized that there is no single simple recommendation to resolve the homeless issue raised in the survey. We're requesting your consent to allow the Public Safety Committee to convene a meeting of all the organizations on the island that currently provide services to the homeless population. This would include the sheriff, the fire department, the local churches, representatives from the county that provide extended services to the homeless, and representatives, local business, and the town council. Intent of the meeting is to have each organization explain what services they currently offer, along with any limitations and legal or financial constraints they have, and determine how each organization can support the other. The long-term goal of developing an integrated cross-organizational plan for holistically dealing with homeless population on Fort Myers Beach. It's fully understood that each organization provides benefits to improve conditions for the homeless, improving the safety of the residents and visitors of the island, and as such, much must be part of the discussion. Again, the idea is that trying to get them in the same room. We've talked to a lot of them individually. We know that the council member has been very involved in this, but we would like to try and get them all in one room and allow them to each state what services they're offering. Each organization understands what the other one has. They talk about what limitations they have in enforcing or in providing services. And after that, develop a more holistic plan on how each can interact with each other. To do that, we would need your approval for us to hold such a meeting.
John, I'm sorry, Ray. I believe that's already happening through the Beach Ministerial Association. I don't know of anybody else offering services on the island besides the churches.
Services include what community policing would do if you pick that up, or what the current core services of the sheriff are.
Well, they communicate with the sheriff's office as well.
Yes, they do.
We've had them at the meetings
Yes,
before.
we know that. And those are, the idea was that each would talk to some of these individually. We haven't talked to all of them, but the idea was to get them in an open forum, public forum, have them talk about what they can and can't do, and then come back and either educate the public more broadly as to what's available or limited, and see if there's any financial assistance that the town could provide and what the benefit to providing that with the town would be. And also to communicate, because we did get in the survey there's a lot of individual comments in the survey. And some of those, they talk to the sheriff, and the sheriff, they say, our response is we can do nothing. Well, that's not true. And that's misinformation that's out there. The sheriff is limited in certain cases, what they can and can't do. We talk about criminal activity. In other cases, they do things that are very proactive. They brought in hot teams, for example, to work with some of the homeless. And so part of this, having that meeting and bringing everybody into a single forum, would be the education of the public, as well as the hope of developing a holistic plan.
I think it's a great idea, John. It could be a homeless summit, as it were, here on the beach, bringing all the parties together under the auspices of the town council to give it the seriousness that it deserves. Well, I'm all for that, and maybe we could get that together sooner rather than later.
I think one of the concerns, Mayor, is that 70% of the population feels the town's not doing enough. And we know, and we've talked to people, there is a lot going on that's helping the homeless. What their focus is, I think when they say 70%, because some of the discussion, if it was on the chronic ones that choose to be homeless, they're not causing problems. They choose to focus on some that may have mental health issues that could be causing problems in the Times Square area for businesses as they loiter out front. And so I think it's important that the community understand that the town is in fact treating this as a very serious issue and looking to do whatever they can to improve the situation for the residents and the business. That's the objective behind it, man.
We get it piecemeal. We get some from this person, we get some from that organization, some from I like the idea of, as you say, putting them all together in one room and hashing it out all together.
And the only point I was trying to make is this group feels they've already been doing that, and everyone's been welcome to come to it. So they may feel like you're replicating what they're already doing. So this is going to have to be done with some finesse, yes, that people don't feel. If you were already doing something and someone came along and said, let's do X, and you were already doing it, follow my drift.
I think,
I can actually.
I think what we do is we'll give them, we'll encourage them and see if we can take it a little bit further and give them the support that apparently they do need.
I'll make the suggestion that I get together with Rexanne and we discuss what they're doing now, and I talk to them before we go forward with this. I mean, I still want to go forward with the planning of it, but as part of that planning, I'll sit with you and come to one of those meetings and we'll talk about what the intent is, that this is not to you're not doing the job.
Right.
It's the perception of what's going on and getting the visibility to what's going on and what can and can't be done.
I was gonna suggest the same thing, to have John as the chair of the Public Safety Committee attend the meetings. He's more in the loop of what's going on.
I think, if I could add, I think that the fact that the Public Safety Committee is televised and people would have access to that, to view that summit, I think it could be really helpful. And I also would just say, it appears as if the county, through the COVID stimulus dollars, has enhanced a number of their programs significantly. And for us to make sure we're fully participating in the county's efforts, I think could be helpful as well.
Point. Anything else, John?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot come out of the survey, but we also have been meeting quite regularly. And so your meeting Thursday is important. Next topic is street lighting. This one is not as positive. On July 26th, the lighting consultant presented their options and recommended actions to a joint meeting of the Public Safety Committee and the Marine Task Force. I'm reporting here on the observations, questions, and concerns which the Public Safety Committee identified in the report. Follow-up discussions with a consultant, where Steve will be making his own report. In general, the report itself contained insufficient data points to make an informed decision on which option would be best for the Fort Myers Beach. The report presented 5 options for consideration. 1, retain existing system. The consultant made it clear they did not feel this was a viable solution, but more a low-cost default. Unfortunately, they did not identify or document the risk and the cost, the legal or liability issues that the town would be taking if this option was chosen. In other words, part of what we're asking to do is, if you do nothing, what is the extended liability of doing nothing once you've been informed by them that the street lighting is insufficient? So we asked them to provide you with the risk assessment of doing nothing. Work with the town attorney on that. Second option was white LED. The report itself stated, and I'm extracting the comments, it is possible to design a roadway lighting system using white LED lighting by locating luminary and shielding lights so that no light is visible from the nesting areas. It sounds like you can do it with white LED until you question them. Yet when the consultant was presented the report to the committee, they stated there are shielding issues. When we asked for further clarification of this comment, we were told that the shielding takes a great deal of refinement, curving each light from each and making individual lamp adjustments to ensure that the shielding is properly configured. The shielding issue raised is that Florida Power and Light does not offer that level of service. That the only way the shielding would be perfected is if the town took over ownership and or contracted for that level of design. When asked the cost of the town ownership, they could not give a figure, only that it would be a lot. We asked them to provide an estimated ownership cost figure for both initial transition and implementation, as well as ongoing cost. The consultant estimated that approximately 100 additional poles would be needed to provide light uniformity the length of the boulevard. The report used the same spacing distance and therefore the same number of poles for both white LED and amber LED. And asked if white LED couldn't be implemented with broader spacing and less number of poles than required for amber, the answer was yes, that's true, but we used the same spacing figure for both. As white LED allows for greater spacing, calculating the same number of poles, white LED, as that used, which would be needed for amber at $13,000 per pole, overstates the implementation cost of white LED. It should be noted that the report stated there are currently 130 FPL poles on the boulevard. There are actually more FPL poles, but only 130 represent the number of those currently with existing lights mounted. The remainder of the poles, number unknown by the consultant, can only be used if Florida Power and Light equipment is part of the solution implemented. Florida Power and Light does not allow foreign equipment on its poles. This white LED option further stated, quote, this is the preferred option for functionality of drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, all nighttime road users during the entire year. Consultant has now put on record that white LED is the best solution for humans. Right. Problem with that statement is that the shielding necessary to protect turtle disorientation isn't achievable with our current provider, and the cost for the town to take over the operation is a lot. If the shielding is not properly designed, the solution would require turning off streetlights as done today, which is 60 streetlights out of the 130. Further, any solution other than white LED would now have to be benchmarked against the state. Basically told you that white LED is the best, and they're going to give you an alternative that doesn't provide the best for humans. Number 3 was amber LED. Steve Johnson, who's the chair of the Marine Resource Task Force, engaged the consultant in a very in-depth technical discussion on the differences between white LED and amber LED. Public Safety Committee has previously indicated they're not engineers and are waiting for documentation or a demonstration that illustrates the visibility differences between white LED and amber LED. Consultant indicated they have agreed to set up a demonstration for the town, possibly in a parking lot, visibly demonstrate the difference. That would probably not be representative demonstration, as the lighting in a parking lot would not be representative of the street lighting throughout the island. They have asked for documentation that details the differences in behavioral terms. Example, stopping distance from the time a person is visible under white LED and amber LED. Number 4 was dual source amber light and white LED. The idea being used white LED outside of turtle season and amber during turtle season. The obvious concern we have is that if amber is safe, then it's safe year round. If it's not, then it should not be recommended. Option 2, the consultant is on record that white LED is the best solution, pedestrians, etc. Option 2, white LED was stated that may be necessary to turn off streetlights where shielding is ineffective. The question was asked, if dual light is the selected option, could white LED be used year round instead of turning off the streetlights where the shielding is not working, change those and only those lights to amber? Consultant had not considered this, but seemed to think it was feasible in research. The issue there being the light confusion from dark, white, or white to amber, in which causes greater confusion for the driver. 5th, the recommendation or option was a standalone solar lighting system. Marine Resource Task Force had identified a community that was deploying solar lights and asked the consultant to research. They reported the project in Sarasota and extrapolated a cost for Fort Myers Beach of greater than $11 million. They did not do any feasibility analysis of solar lighting. Financial chart included in the report was reviewed, but there were entry errors on the chart as well, and previously mentioned issues with number of poles and the lack of total estimate for town ownership, so it was decided to wait for an update. Issues the Public Safety Committee previously brought to the consultant and the council's attention were not addressed in the report, such as side street lighting transition. Could the additional 100 poles physically be spaced properly amongst the driveways and side streets along the boulevard? However, for spacing, the consultant indicated that eyeballed it and believed the poles could be added. We are aware the county has been following the consultant's efforts through the Director of Public Works. However, we question how much direct input they have solicited from the county regarding the recommended options. Minimal at that time, although I do understand now that they are meeting with the county, I believe this week or prior to the meeting. Finally, the committee is concerned about the delays that would be incurred to test products that are not currently on the Florida Power and Light or the Florida Wildlife Commission's approved list. It was stated testing may take 6 months, but could be much longer. Thank you, Rick. Because of backlogs due to COVID. So if they come up with a solution that is not on either one of those lists, it has to go through approval process. The approval could take up to 6 months, but they do not know for sure because Florida Wildlife, I believe, has not done any testing due to COVID for over a year, and they have quite a backlog.
All right, John, that's the best I could do.
All I can handle right now. Neighborhood watch. Are there any issues on questions on street lighting? Bottom line on this is what we saw last week. There's not enough information to make an informed decision. They need to go back. There were several issues, not only raised by our committee, but also by the Marine Task Force. Questions on that?
You're doing a very thorough job, John.
Neighborhood watch. Only 11% of neighborhoods responding currently have neighborhood watch programs in place. 53% of the respondents would like a program. We're tabling the issue until a decision is made regarding contracting for community policing services. If the council does contract for those services, community policing officers would have a significant role in establishing future programs. In the interim, the town staff is identifying the respondents who desire a community watch program so we can be specific when we begin the process. There are also a number of other issues raised by the survey respondents that did not relate to public safety, dealt with items like town operations and facilities. These were made available to town manager for any further action. On the whole, the community feels safe, and the data from the sheriff and the fire department validates that feeling. The monthly reports we get. Current services provided by the county sheriff, the fire department, and the town creates an environment in which both residents and visitors have a safe place to live and play. Issues raised by the respondent in the survey are all addressable. Some can be resolved with just town resources. Some can be improved by contracting for community policing. Some by coordinating community resources, and others will require interlocals with the county. But every issue raised is addressable. Questions?
I would just point out, thank you for kind of distilling that down, because I read the survey and there was valuable information there and then quite a bit of just ranting. So I appreciate you going through that in some detail and coming up with a very well-organized report, John.
Thank you, John, very much for that report. Catherine Light here. Catherine, do you want to give a report for the Anchorage Advisory?
Catherine Light, Chair of the Anchorage Advisory Committee. I don't really have a report, but I'm here in support of your agenda item for the upland service provider, and to answer any questions, if you have them, about the proposal, which is a revised proposal from, I guess, the proposal from last summer. I was not really active in doing the work for this last year or this year, but I've spoken with Chelsea a few times and think I understand most of what the proposal is. As you're aware, we're looking at various options going forward, but I think that this is what we need to do right now as we transition, perhaps to finding a place that we might purchase in the town. So I will stay till your agenda item, or if you have any questions now.
I don't have any questions now. Anybody have a question right now? Maybe if
you have some,
if we had something you could answer.
If I can,
That would get you out of here a little earlier.
I'm willing to stay.
Does anybody have a
if you think
question
of
for
something,
Catherine?
so.
It's not. Okay. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the approval of minutes. We have the June 7th, 2021 Town Council minutes and also the June 9th Management and Planning Session minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes, or are there any corrections, or?
Move to approve.
Then moved, seconded. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just a brief change on page 14 of our pamphlet or our packet. Just at the last sentence there, it's Councilmember Adderholt questioned naming something to honor Dan Hughes. I actually suggested it, didn't question it. I suggested it, I didn't care much for the way that sounded. So if we could just change that word question to suggested, that would be great.
Okay, doesn't sound like.
Now do I have to change the motion to?
Yeah, you'll have to amend it.
I'll amend my motion to approve the minutes as amended by Councilman Adderholt.
I will second the amended motion.
Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is the consent agenda, and there are two items on there. One is a proclamation declaring this Children's Vision and Learning Month. The other is a resolution ratifying the action that council has already taken on upgrading the audio-visual system here in Town Hall. If there are no objections or no one wants to pull any item to discuss, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Moved, seconded. Discussion. Yes, sir.
If we could, I would like to pull that to discuss it a little bit, just to get an update. I've received a lot of questions about it. If we could just get an update as to where that stands, if it's still moving forward as we discussed at the last meeting.
Since the agenda has already been approved, wasn't that the time to pull something from the consent agenda? You can certainly discuss it.
Fair enough.
Okay. So there's a motion, a second to approve. Any further discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Want to discuss that right now briefly?
We can give a status update
Just a
on
status update. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily
Okay.
have to be discussion.
Good. Roger, can you give us a quick
I'm
status?
gonna ask Amy to do it since she's the one who's interfacing with the,
All the infrastructure's in, the wiring boxes and all are here. We're just waiting on equipment to come in. The current pandemic, it takes a while to get things. When the machinery comes, we're ready to go.
Is there any idea as to when that would be?
Order. Waiting on manufacturing.
Okay.
Possibly a couple more months.
Thank you for the
Everything's
update.
ready to go when we do get there.
Great, thank you.
And I guess I'll just jump in and say, it's not apparent what the infrastructure work was. They did such a good job putting everything back the way it was. Amy was showing me earlier all the things that they had done, but you can't see it. So they did a really great job of making things look nice after they did the infrastructure part.
just a further clarification. It's my understanding from, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, that from the second council meeting in the month to the first council meeting in the following month would be the period when they would be making the equipment switch out.
As we get it all.
And I'll just add that I happened to be coming through here a few times during our break and watching these guys, and they were meticulous tradesmen who were doing these installations. You can tell when someone's working properly, and they were doing it thusly. So if that's any indication of what the final product is going to be, we're in good hands.
Because I don't see any sign at all, except for the ceiling panel that has the eagle mark.
Yes, that was not done by a tradesman. Okay. Next item is the public hearing, which is ordinance 21-05, the Tico franchise agreement. This is an ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, granting to Peoples Gas System, a division of Tampa Electric Company, its successors and assigns a non-exclusive natural gas franchise agreement to use the public rights-of-way of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, and prescribing the terms and conditions under which said franchise may be exercised, making findings, providing an effective date, and repealing prior ordinance. This is the second reading, and we're going to finally adopt it, have the final adoption today. We'll open.
Mr. Mayor, just to, and as required, notifying that it has been properly advertised and this ordinance is properly before you for second reading.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I believe there's a representative from Tico here you may want to recognize.
Yes, sir. Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For the record, Chris Lopez, Director, External Affairs for Tico Peoples Gas here in Southwest Florida. It's my job to coordinate between our local governments, municipalities, counties, regarding franchise agreements and economic development and the progression of the natural gas utility. So I'm here to answer any questions. My apologies for missing the first reading where we could have vetted some questions. Just real quick off the top of my head, remembering from that meeting, our current line infrastructure goes about as far south as the Junkanoo here on the island. We do have capital project plans in the future to pipe the entire island south and bring another pipe north on Bonita Beach, and connect eventually. That's pretty far out, but lining the island is not, as far as we're concerned. There's tremendous demand, both commercially and residentially, for the product, for the energy redundancy it provides as far as backup generation, as well as the cheaper option it provides for heat. Hot water heating is a big offer, and cooking as well. When our initial infrastructure was laid in the early 2000s, Junkanoo was pretty much furthest south commercial customer that wanted to come on board. After Junkanoo, there was a pretty significant gap between potential commercial customers who wanted gas. Residential demand is high, residential usage great. We love that for our company, but you can imagine as far as gas usage goes, a restaurant like Junkanoo is going to use a lot amount of gas than somebody like a residence. We have plans north of basically council here, north on the island, to the very tip. There's constant expansion as far as residential homes coming on board that are close to lines and adjacent lines and things like that. Per the manager's recommendations in the last meeting, we are completely okay with the 14-day permit turnaround. That's extending that from a 10-day. Absolutely understand that. A 10-year franchise agreement is going to be difficult to get approval by my leadership. We typically prefer long-term agreements so that when we do prepare estimates and plans for things like expanding southward on the island, we know that in 10, 15, 20 years, there's going to be a good opportunity under an existing agreement or a potential new agreement to recoup our investment in that infrastructure. All natural gas lines that we put down are buried. There's a lot of costs associated with that, as well as you can imagine, construction materials and everything else. So we'd ask for a minimum of a 20-year. We could do a 10-year with 2 5-year auto renews. The language in that we are just about to adopt with the Village of Estero. That brings about the opportunity for either party to recommend after the initial 10 years that we come back and review the agreement, review the work being done, and redress any concerns and things like that, and then move forward and I think can be. So, I'm here for any questions that you may have. It's a pleasure to be here. I haven't been here and it seems like forever, but last time we were discussing vacation rentals.
Questions for Mr. Lopez? Yes, sir.
Chris, I have a couple questions. First of all, thank you for being here. Could you just go into a little bit more detail as to what your business model is in terms of your calculation for expansion as you determine whether you're going to go south on Estero Boulevard? Just kind of walk us through that process and how you calculate it.
So from an expense category, I can't give you great detail into that. It differs tremendously depending on where we want to bring our line to, what the capital cost is going to be, what size pipe we're going to use. Are we going to use plastic? Are we going to use coated steel? Right now, the main pressurized gas main that we bring onto the island, it differs right now between 6-inch and 4-inch, all coming over from San Carlos down over the under the water and through that and fueling. So those cost estimates differ. What I can tell you is from a business standpoint, creating a loop down the island across to Bonita Beach and down, and then replugging into our system off of Bonita Beach Road creates a tremendous opportunity for us to have a resilient network. If anything were to happen to our pipe, if somebody were to dig, let's say on San Carlos and hit our line, we'd lose the whole island temporarily until that can be patched and refired up. So projected cost, I'd have to get back to you as far as what that would cost. I will tell you, did a neighborhood in Naples called Aqualine Shores, which is South Naples. We piped the entire neighborhood almost to the cost of $1 million.
The current infrastructure on the north end, is that coated steel or is it plastic?
Plastic, I believe.
And we talk about the franchise agreement here in this agreement, and it discusses 6% of the company's gross revenue, less any adjustments for uncollectible accounts. You know what that was for the last fiscal year for Fort Myers Beach?
Oh, I knew you were gonna. No, Mr. Manager, I think I provided a projection about what that typically could cost. I could get that information to you by the end of the day.
And maybe the town manager knows.
I'm sorry, I don't know that number off the top of
That's
my head.
okay. Just curious to give the citizenry an idea of what this relationship could benefit, how it could benefit the community financially.
Absolutely.
And lastly, the insurance clause in section 13, that boilerplate language that you include for every community, does it cover pipeline safety issues that we've seen around the country?
Boilerplate for us, and we believe it wholeheartedly covers both parties.
Thank you.
You.
Other questions for Mr. Lopez? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming down. Betcha. We'll see lots more of you in the years to come, months to come, maybe. Okay, is there anybody from the public that wishes to comment or discuss this matter? I don't see anyone, so we'll close the public comment. Council? Question?
A question for Roger. Earlier, you had mentioned what he had talked about, the 10-year and, you know, a shorter term via the 30-year option. Do you think the option of the 10 years with the 5-year auto renewals is a better idea for the town? Is it more conducive for us to do that than go directly into the 30-year?
Well, I could tell you that 10-year suggestion worked because Chris is here today. But I understand his company's point of view. No, recouping and planning for the future is a very difficult thing from an infrastructure standpoint. We're going through that ourselves here with water and stormwater. So I understand his point. When he says 5-year renewals, I don't really see a problem with that, long as they're, you know, subject to review and approval by the council, not that it's just an automatic extension. So with that caveat, I would think that that's a way to get them here, for the council to have the ability to talk to their representatives periodically and make sure that all your expectations are being met.
Any other questions, discussion?
I don't have a question. I guess I would just state for the record that if I were going to make the motion, I would be amending section 4 to the renewables as discussed. And I believe also our town attorney was in favor of the 14 days in section 7. And Mr. Lopez has indicated his agreement. So I'm not seeing anybody not shake their heads. So I guess
Go right
I'll
ahead.
move to adopt ordinance 21-05, amending section 4 to the renewable years that we would just discussed with the 5-year renewables, and changing section 7 from 10 to 14 days.
Second it.
Move and second discussion.
That, did you insert the recommendation by the town manager of having it come not just be auto renewal, but come before the council?
Yeah, that's how I understand the motion is that it would be,
Just making sure.
not automatic.
Very good.
Okay,
That's how I intended it.
fair enough. Just wanted to be clear.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any objection to the motion? The roll call? Okay, roll call. Councilman Allers.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hasselfras.
Aye.
Councilman Adderholt.
Aye.
Councilman Veach.
Aye.
Mayor Murphy. Aye. The motion carries unanimously. The ordinance is approved as amended. Okay, we'll move on to the, does anybody need a 5 or 10-minute break, 5-minute break? Anybody? Or you want to? Yes? Take a 5-minute break. How's that? Okay. And the first item is Resolution 21-35, LCSB Shared Use Interlocal. And this is adopt Resolution 21-35 for an interlocal agreement with the School Board of Lee County for the use of Bay Oaks recreational campus facilities for a collaborative shared use agreement for the students of Fort Myers Beach Elementary School throughout the school year. I could read the resolution if anybody wants to hear it. Otherwise, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Move to adopt Resolution
Adopt.
2135.
Second it.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is authorize the town manager to execute grants for fiscal year 21-22. This is to authorize the town manager to appropriate, allocate funds, and execute grant documents for the following three grants: Clean Vessel Act Grant, Tourist Development Council Grant, and the West Coast Inland Navigation District Grant for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to?
Mr. Manager,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor, I just want to point out to all of you that you've all received a copy of the preliminary draft budget for next fiscal year. You all noted that we've set up a significant match reserve within that proposed budget to support items such as this.
Very good.
I just had a quick question. My memory serves me correctly, this amount for beach and shoreline looks less than we've asked for in the past. Maybe my memory is faulty.
I know that we at the request of the TDC have tried to raise our match a little bit to be more in line with the other governments. So therefore, the amount that they would be putting in would be a little less.
Remember that they had made that point that they were going to be asking people to.
Roger, if you could, real quick, just clarify the trailer part. There's been some confusion of people have reached out to me of what that trailer's for. They're confused between the trailer on Palm Avenue and the trailer that we've discussed potentially for the marine, or for the upland services.
So the trailer on Palm Avenue is the public restroom trailer that used to be out there till about 3 years ago. It got moved when I think we were preparing for Irma, and basically fell apart as a result of being removed. The council at that time did not want to seek its replacement through the TDC until basically this council was put in office, and then you all supported that and went to the TDC and able to get the new trailer funded through them. So that's this trailer.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
This is a request for funding, right? It's not.
Well, the TDC recommendations for the Palm trailer has been reviewed by the TDC and forwarded to the county commission for approval. And typically, county commission probably approves what the TDC recommends 99.999% of the time. So I suspect that it will be approved when it completes that last step.
Okay, that's a lot of nines.
Okay. Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to go after these grants?
Moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is C. This is to authorize the replacement of utility truck in the amount of $49,366 from Duval Fleet utilizing the state procurement contract. Allocate the old utility truck as surplus to be auctioned at Royal Auction Group, estimated value $9,000, and authorize the town manager to execute contract documents. Is there a motion to authorize this replacement?
So moved.
Then moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. The next item is authorize the purchase and installation of 2 new pumps for the Marina Booster Station in the amount of $120,062. Is there a motion to approve this purchase and installation?
Moved.
Moved. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is the Roar Offshore Boat Races. This is a special event to be held October 7th through 9th, 2021. And I see that the offshore folks are here. Mr. Manager, you want to lead us in on this discussion and then proceed?
Yeah, yes, about 6 weeks ago, maybe, in that time frame, we were pleasantly surprised to be contacted by the Raw Offshore folks that they wanted to put together another event after taking a year off of COVID, as all of us have. And there was a series of meetings held with the public safety agencies and others to as a preliminary to submitting this permit. And they've completed the permit document and gotten the appropriate sign-offs. And because it's particularly the Thursday night event, which is the sort of what's labeled a boat parade, although it's not really a parade per se, it's a park and place parade. But in any event, that requires obviously the closing of town streets and the businesses who have those boats in front of them like to have the open container law waived so that people can have a beverage and go look at boats and talk to the boat drivers, the racers, etc. As it was 2 years ago, they would like to continue that part, of course, as well as the race course, which basically runs from Bowditch to Diamond Head for all intents and purposes. So in any event, as best I could tell, pretty much everything is the same as last time, with the one change that I would call to your attention is the counties being a little bit more restrictive as to use of their facilities. Short of that, everything else is the same.
Okay.
Is that pretty much it? 10 minutes, Cindy?
Does anybody wish to question the promoters?
Yeah, the one thing that I noticed that I didn't think was the same is I thought that last time we had asked for porta-johns to be, I noticed you have them on San Carlos. But I
Yeah,
didn't
come on
see
up.
any on the beach areas that you were providing additional ones.
All right, hold on. Let's start all over again.
I'm Cindy Hill, one of the promoters.
Okay.
Hill.
Okay. Proceed, Madam Vice Mayor.
I already asked the question.
So that's because of, as Roger stated, the town manager, that we do not have the use of the county property. So we don't have official record.
We don't have the space to put them without having utilization of county property, which is where we placed the porta-johns previously.
Correct.
Don't have that property to place them.
Well, but people still need to go to the bathroom, so maybe we need to find another place to put them.
What is done for spring break? Porta-johns. Could replicate that.
No, well, we don't necessarily place additional porta-johns out for spring break, but obviously the council, if the council feels that this is a concern, that you can approve the permit with the condition that appropriate porta-johns be placed, no less than a half a mile apart or some other thing, and we'll work with them to develop the locations.
And I know in 2019, like all the restaurants, they put additional porta-johns and they were not utilized. And the only ones that really were utilized are the ones in the pits and the ones that were at Crescent Beach and Lynn Hall Park. Those were the
But you're
only
telling
ones
me
that
they
really-
weren't used the last time?
And Hall Park was, yes,
Yes.
100%.
The
But
people
they-
use them, but they were not like as,
I don't want to ask you to do something if they weren't used. So if there were 6 at Lynn Hall Park and 6 were used, and maybe we just need to find a place to put 6 of them, which wouldn't be a lot.
Probably find, utilize private property, maybe from some of our sponsors would give us.
we had one in Hooters and that was
Yeah.
utilized.
And on your application on the first page, you say you're renting parking spaces, but then you didn't answer how many you were renting.
We're just working with the town manager, so it is less and Doug, that's been.
Right, so what, as, if the council approves this, basically what they do is they're buying the parking spaces for the day of the parade, because we rope them off so that when the boats come over the bridge and get parked, there's not private cars in the way. They're roped off and set aside for the day for the special event of the
Okay,
boats.
I was thinking of a different parking space issue, because I thought like last time you used Chapel by the Sea and rented from them.
Correct. We rented, well, actually, they donated that parking lot for our volunteers. So we work with Keep Lee Beautiful. We use that parking lot for the volunteers and for a base for them to pick up additional items.
And my concern just was, when it doesn't say how many you've acquired, I'm worried that there are enough. So if you need 50, do you have 50?
Yes.
What we're doing is what we did in 2019, which worked.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
And I could also send that to Roger. I was speaking with Doug, and I do have the exact amount of spaces and how much it costs, which I.
I was just concerned because it wasn't filled out, so.
Cool.
Yeah, I have a question on page 190 of our packet. You talk about lighting, and the lighting is essentially during daylight hours, the hours you put in. Now, is that like indoor lighting?
So that's lighting for the pits for the race team.
Okay.
Pits, so on the other side, over in Salty Sam's lots, there's not adequate lighting in some of the areas. Lighting in.
Okay, but then said you have the hours that they'll be on, and it has it from sunrise to sunset. Or
Well,
have it
it's
lights
gonna-
during the day.
Yes, well, I just worded that wrong.
So
I
now-
could change that.
so
It's
not-
gonna be at night.
No lighting on the beach. It's only over in the pits, which is on the other side of the bay, and it will actually be utilized at team session. It's not good. It's not set hours. We utilized out of, I think we had 15 of them in 2019. Only utilized 2 of them.
Okay, so you're gonna have lights at night, not in the day. Okay. I just want to applaud the little, the Share the Beach brochure that you put in, handing out.
We
That's.
did that in 2019 as well. It was at check-in of all the hotels, sponsor hotels, and then also distributed.
I appreciate that. It's very well done.
I would just briefly like to say welcome back.
Thank you.
We're always looking for events in off-season, and this is great boost to our local economy. So thank you for choosing Fort Myers Beach.
We have an off-season anymore?
Fair
Right.
question.
This year.
February 29th.
Any other,
Yeah.
Dan, do you have any questions?
Just a quick question, it's probably more for Roger. You said they've received all the necessary sign-offs from the county, fire,
No,
Lover's
that-
Committee,
No,
all that?
no, I'm sorry if I said it that way. We have met with all those agencies. We had a group meeting and there's been follow-up meetings to reach a meeting of the minds, but the actual sign-off happens with the payments. So there's a coordination issue. There's been a meeting of the minds of what's required. I believe these folks have been advised of what the cost would be to the event sponsors, et cetera. So it's now, it's approved by you, subject to getting all those sign-offs.
So it would be contingent on all the sign-offs. Because I noticed in here, nothing had anything, there were some dates, but nothing was signed off on.
Yes, I'm sorry if I gave you that impression.
I do have one sign off from Eve Turtle Time.
Okay,
I would move to approve the special event permit contingent upon all approvals being received and the parties working to place the same number of bathrooms that were on the Lee County property before in some location, and coordinate that with Roger.
Second.
we're moving second discussion. I'll just say welcome back again. Thank you. And I commend you and our town staff for putting it together as quickly as you did. I don't recommend that, but I commend that, but anyhow, and I wish you luck with it. And it's a great thing for the beach, always has been, and appreciate the efforts that you put into it very much. So, any objection to the motion? The motion carries unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Look forward to working with you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a poker walk. This is also a special event. Walk the Arches. This is for the Arch Group. Poker walk to be held on October 2nd, 2021. There's a representative here for the event. Come on up, please.
Madam Vice Mayor, Town Council. My name is Jamie Kuba. I am the Vice President of Restore Fort Myers Beach Arches Incorporated. Arches are kind of important to Fort Myers.
A vice president. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, so I mean, brief history. They were erected in 1926. They were the welcome home sign to everybody coming into Fort Myers Beach for a number of years until they were accidentally torn down. So our group is working to try and restore them. Lee County has given us permission to put them in Bowditch Park. So we're going to have one commemorative arch. It'll actually be like a driving span. I actually work for the engineering firm that is behind it and get it done. So as we're trying to move on with this project, we have to raise a lot of money. Rough early estimates is at least probably $80,000, maybe more. We are doing this all on our own, all with, volunteers and the local community. And so we are asking for a little bit of help here to allow us to do some fundraising events. I don't know if this is out of order, but we actually have on agenda F, it's the poker walk, and then on G, it's the annual Rock the Arches. I'm actually here representing both, so I can hopefully answer any questions you may have for either one.
Well, we'll take one at a time, Madam Vice President, and we'll work on this one first. Is there a motion to approve, or first of all, any questions? Questions here before we get underway? No. So is there a motion to approve the poker walk?
Go ahead. Oh, I would move approval, move to approve.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Objection? Carries unanimously. Very good.
Thank you very much. We
Okay,
really
now,
appreciate it.
hang around. We'll, the next item is the third annual Rock the Arches.
Back.
No, you stay right there.
Just check.
I don't want to have to go through all that again with you, although it was very nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is the third annual Rock the Arches, another special event. A music festival to be held April 23rd, 22. God willing, we're all still here. So, go ahead. You want to tell us about that one?
James Beal. Same reason that I'm here. This is a major fundraiser for us. I know, obviously last year we had to cancel because of COVID, but the previous year, I believe we raised somewhere around like $15,000. So it's a big chunk of change for us. We are hoping actually that this event will be larger because we're just expecting a better turnout. Pre-COVID thing. Anyway, yeah, again, we're begging for your permission to do so.
We need to beg. Okay, is there a motion to approve the Rock the Arches Musical Festival, April 23rd, 2022? Go ahead.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion, questions, comments?
Just want to point out too that the thing that's not on here that you're using to raise money is the buy a brick, customizing bricks around the arches. If anybody is interested in doing that, and buying a brick to memorialize and help raise money for the cause, that's something else you can do.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning.
Sign him up. He's pretty good.
I know, right? Like, we need some more volunteers, sir.
Yeah, for the record, I bought a brick.
Oh, well, thank you. We really greatly appreciate
Hearing no objection, the motion carries unanimously. Very
it.
good.
Perfect. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
You're more
Have a
than
nice
welcome.
day.
Yep, you too. Okay, the next event is Rugby on the Beach, another special event, Rugby on the Beach, to be held August 7th, coming up, 2021. Is anybody here from the, don't look like rugby players to me. Is there a motion to approve the Rugby on the Beach?
I have a question.
Okay.
The map that shows where the fields are seems to show field number 2, private property. Not, I'm looking for the right page now. I usually mark them and I didn't.
286.
Yeah. It's on 286. Thank you, Dan. It shows rugby field number 1 is clearly behind commercial property, but rugby field number 2 looks to me like it's behind private residences.
I think they're all the same owner though, aren't they?
I thought those were private houses.
They were being built, but I don't think they've been, I don't know the status of those, but.
Well,
And the only reason I'm concerned is I know that like 2 or 3 years ago when they did this, they went the other direction toward the Red Coconut and caused some disruption at their property. So they have a record, unfortunately, of,
right, so, well, we can approve this with the condition of they have to have approval of the adjacent property owners.
okay, I'll move to approve with that condition attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I don't know if they're, it seems like Councilman Allers might be a candidate for the rugby. He's the build for it.
Yeah, I lack the speed maybe, but other than that, I'm in.
Don't want to be on the bottom of that scrum. All right, without any further objection, the motion carries unanimously. The next item is, was mentioned earlier, the groundbreaking celebration for PI for their Margaritaville project. There is a representative, there are 2 representatives here, one from the Chamber of Commerce and one from TPI. So come on up and identify yourself and tell us what you have.
Good morning, Council. Jackie Lezak, Executive Director, Fort Myers Beach Chamber of Commerce, also Vice President, Fort Myers Beach Friends of the Arts. Organizations have brought forth the permit for the groundbreaking celebration on August 13th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the TPI property located at 1172 and 74 Estero Boulevard. The event, as stated in the permit application, is being brought forth by the Chamber and Friends of the Arts as nonprofit entities for the event organization, and it is an invitation-only event. It is limited by the fire department to number of attendees because it is an active construction site, as well as being an area that is somewhat congested, and where there's a tent involved, so obviously the fire department has put a attendee limit on it. Any questions on the application?
Questions for Jackie?
It's pretty straightforward. Public is invited to attend. From the beach side, they will be able to see and be part of the entire celebration, as the actual groundbreaking will take place on the beach. We do have approval from Turtle Time and Eve, so that all covered. And they will be able to be a part of the celebration as well. All got your invitation.
Thank you. And just for the record, I won't be there, but that in no way is diminishing my support for the projects. It's just I have some family business at it.
Anything else for Jackie?
Move to approve the permit.
Moved and seconded. Want to add anything to this discussion, John? No? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. We'll see you on the 13th. Been poor form to deny that one. All right, the next item is request for proposal 20-24-PW Municipal Anchorage. This is for Upland Services. This is to authorize the town manager to execute, allocate, and appropriate funds for Upland Services for the town's mooring field with Estero Bay Hotel Company doing business as Matanzas Inn in response to RFP-20-24-PW Municipal Anchorage for Upland Services. Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to execute this agreement?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection?
So, but this is our solution, at least a short-term solution for the Upland Services until we can find a better option, or is this anticipated to be the long-term solution?
No, this agreement has an exit clause for either party, but it's not intended to be a long-term solution. It's intended to be a stopgap measure between the end of the current contract and until such time as the town can identify an alternate solution. We had considered and at one point discussed an alternate solution, perhaps of renting or purchasing trailers and putting them under the bridge. And at the end of the day, we think that this is probably a better interim solution with the hope that we can come up with a solution that works for the Anchorage Advisory Committees, the Morganfield users, and the town.
This has been vetted by the Anchorage Committee.
It's my understanding they're aware of our recommendation, and they, of course, are very anxious, as I think the chairperson mentioned, to get into a new permanent facility as soon as possible, but they recognize the need for a transition.
Okay. So essentially we're going to be leasing the space, but we'll have town staff operating it. So it'll be the same
That's correct.
space we're working in now, but just essentially under different management us.
We'll be directly managing the operation.
Else? Okay, the motion was to authorize the town manager to execute this agreement. It was seconded, it's been discussed. Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is Resolution 21-37, which is a transfer of property from TPI to the town of Fort Myers Beach. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, accepting the offer of TPI FMB 1 LLC, convey the real property located at 1054 5th Street, Fort Myers Beach, Florida, 33931, map number 24-46-23-W3-00206.0050, to the town, and authorizing town staff to take all steps necessary to complete the transfer of the property to the town of Fort Myers Beach and providing an effective date.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the town staff to take the steps necessary to complete the transfer.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is public comment. Gentlemen, anybody wish to comment again? Adam? No? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Town managers' items.
So, Mr. Mayor, two things I'd like to bring to your attention. Coming from today's public comment period. One is with respect to the Harbor Point. We believe with the narrowest point being over 42 feet, based on their latest plan, we don't really see an issue with their revised scheme for their slips and docks. However, there's a prohibition in the code that we can't approve it as staff. The question to you is whether you want to direct me to approve it today, which you can do, or you would like to ask them to go through the full vetted public process of seeking variance to require an LPA and two town council meetings.
Let's stop there.
Okay.
Let's poll the group here and see what they want to do. Does anybody have any suggestions about that?
A quick question for John. Would a motion be required to instruct the town manager to move forward without having to go through the second option he laid out?
Yes, and as I understand it, it's because, essentially, it's project as it's been revised is similar to or substantially the same as what was there before. So it's a kind of an equal swap out, which is, I think, because it was different, that's what caused the initial staff stopping of the approval. So with that understanding, and the reason why it would require motion, and that would be the basis for directing the manager to process the application.
In that case, I'll make a motion to direct the town manager to process the application.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Thank you for that suggestion to do that. I think these gentlemen have been through enough with this process, and anything they can do to expedite it now is worthy of this. So any further discussion?
I would just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, say I commend the town manager for being creative procedurally to allow the petitioners to expedite this process. And I would also commend the petitioners for their very professional way in which they've voiced their concerns and participated in the process in a very constructive way.
And put their ducks in a row by getting approval from the neighbors. Really not much objection.
Okay, any further discussion? Objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Good luck. Okay, anything else, Mr. Town Manager?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
Continue, I interrupted you.
Yes, sir. As you may recall, we have been talking about getting FDOT in to give you an update on their design of the foot of the bridge, and it was been an on again, off again type of situation as they've worked through issues with the overall project and how those matters may relate to the foot of the bridge design. Talked to them last week and I suggested that if the foot of the design is fairly well set and that there are just downstream issues on the bridge or St. Carlos Boulevard, that they shouldn't necessarily feel that they can't come in front of town council and give them an update on the foot of the bridge design, because I know all 5 of you are very interested in hearing about the status of that work. With that said, they've indicated late last week that they will be ready to come in, and with your indulgence, we'll get them in the first date that they can make it in, which could be at the meeting in August. Not sooner. Maybe as soon as the M&P if we can get them in. Good. Okay, and the last thing on the list is on your printed agenda, and it has been my protocol in my 40 years in public administration that I give you a heads up as to when the town attorney's evaluation is coming due, so you have time to be prepared and decide, opportunity to discuss how you want to go with that. And it's due by the end of the fiscal year, which is September. This would roughly give you almost 60 days notice on how you want to address that particular issue. That's why it's on the agenda. It's just a reminder.
Okay. An attorney, your items.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. With regard to the item that just was mentioned by the manager, make myself available as we have historically at your convenience to meet if that's your desire, one-on-one to go through the evaluation process and answer any questions that you may have. Make any suggestions and ways that we can continue to improve and enhance the services and keep within budget, which we have historically done. And in fact, we've actually, as I looked over the budget for the last several years, we've actually reduced the town's legal expenditures since we've been your town attorney on an annual basis. And otherwise, as I said, answer any other questions you may have. I do want to briefly mention part of the conversation or answer, and we can certainly discuss this some more in depth at the MNP. The Public Safety Committee's questions or concerns with regard to some of those issues, but in particular the lights and the bells on bikes. That is a requirement of state law. So if you're traveling, past sundown anywhere in the state of Florida on a bike, you're required to have lighting and a bell. And so, whether or not you all direct staff or we adopt an ordinance saying that the businesses that lease or rent these bicycles must require that as part of the process, we certainly can do so. But at the end of the day, as was indicated by chairperson of the committee, it's also an issue of enforcement. But again, we can discuss that in greater length if you so desire an MNP meeting. I just wanted to reiterate that we have discussed, and these are requirements of state law, and it's just a question of how do you want us to go about implementing it. Theoretically, anyone who's in violation of that is subject to a uniform traffic citation by a law enforcement officer for failing to have that required equipment. And again, if you all want to discuss it, we can provide additional information. I did want to get back to the council on a question that was asked a couple months back before we took the hiatus, primarily at the request of Vice Mayor Hossafrost about the issue of trying to identify old homeowners associations or condo associations with beach access and trying to get their approval or potential turnover to the town of their rights. We did do the research. Unfortunately, it is, as I suspected, that in the absence of a formal homeowners association, those rights go to the individual property owners within that subdivision that beach access may provide access to by plat. And in order for a turnover and ownership and maintenance responsibilities to be turned over to the town, we would have to solicit and obtain the approval of all the property owners within that area that are the beneficiaries of that approval, because there is no entity go to and obtain that agreement with or transfer of ownership. Answer any questions if you have.
John, can I
Yes.
say, but one thing did come out of that, and Vice Mayor, the one access that you identified that was public and unmarked and all that, we are moving forward and working on that. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. And while I have the floor, can I just say one more thing? And that is that I don't know if the council has received any emails, but I received an email not too long ago from someone who is requesting who lives on Estero in front of the new project to have rock. Previously, we discussed this and keeping it as grass in front of those properties on the right of way, and we're holding to that unless someone comes here and gets an exemption from you all.
Okay. Just go back to the, these beach right-of-ways. Now, there was a few that were identified that did not have strap numbers, that were like easements that were not deeded in any way.
Those we potentially, part of the problem that we have, not part of the problem, but the Broward County property appraiser does not otherwise note or indicate who owns. Lee County. Sorry. Have another issue with that, so I apologize. The Lee County property appraiser doesn't show that. Broward County does, actually. Who owns those areas? So we have to do additional research. What we have been able to do is we had a meeting, about a month and a half ago with several of the condo associations and homeowners associations who do have deeded, where there are entities, and we're exploring taking over ownership from those entities to enhance our ability to obtain state and potentially federal funding for the beach renourishment project. Because that really is, not only obviously is there an intent to obtain as much beach access as possible, but more public beach access that we are able to show that we have to the associated entities, the federal government and DEP, then we'll score higher in the state funding matrix for our beach renourishment project. So we are working on that, but unfortunately, as it relates to some of these, just don't know who owns them. They're there. We not only will we have to go back and take a look at the plats and confer with the property appraiser, but again, subject to the direction of this town council, if it turns out that the plats show that it's the entire subdivision, is to approach those property owners and try and find out if they would be interested in transferring their ownership as well as their corresponding maintenance responsibility to the town.
Sorry.
I was just gonna continue with what I was saying about the ones that are not deeded that have no strap number. I mean, they show kind of the same as their right of way. So you have to go through and look at the original plats and see why there's a gap there and if that was assigned to.
Or if it was transferred to the county, because we do have an agreement with the county where the county has a list of roads and beach and access points that they provided to us, and they putatively transferred ownership to those to us. We need to match that up. Again, we're working with staff to determine that, but there may be some that are just
When,
unidentifiable.
and sorry, I'm sorry, I'm going to dominate this, but so when the formation of the town, there was an agreement between the town and the county about who had the access to which accesses, right? Who had
Correct.
control of which accesses. It's a matter whether that's a list that was given us by the county or whether it's like everything from.
I mean, there is one in particular, and I should know which one it is, where we couldn't find, it was not on the list, but it clearly, we're the ones who have been maintained, because it is a public access beach point. And so in order to be able to get federal, state funding for a particular project related to that area, we actually did a title search and issued what's called a title certificate to DEP, showing or saying that it was previously under the ownership and control of Lee County prior to incorporation. Upon incorporation, we've took over those responsibilities pursuant to state law. And since then, we've exercised control and maintenance responsibilities for that point or that beach access point. And as a result, EP said, okay, we're now going to allow you to use that as, again, a point criteria to enhance our chances of getting grant funding. So there is a process. It's time consuming. There is an associated cost, not significant, in getting an ownership and encumbrance or a title report to see, where we can trace back as far as we can, and then move forward to accomplish that, and then assert ownership as we move forward on some of those points that are, as you mentioned, Councilmember, are just not accounted for. Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, you would.
I guess, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm in favor of us expending the funds, the reasonable funds that are necessary to continue to pursue that avenue, number one. Number two, as to the Sandpiper Village beach access, my idea would be, rather than saying, let's try to get 100%, which is virtually impossible, can we send a letter to all of the homeowners in Sandpiper Village saying, we'd like you to hold a homeowners association meeting so that you can discuss the idea that the town is willing to take over and maintain this property, which A, you're not maintaining, and B, is being encroached upon by your neighbors. And seeing whether, I think they're just unaware that it's going on. So there might be 5 or 6 people who would be willing to call a meeting, and
I think that's the appropriate way, and if that's the direction we'll do so. I'll coordinate with staff so we can get those letters out to the owners and see if they're willing to meet and come to an agreement and transfer ownership to us, or at least give us an easement, which then would, to the public, which we then would not only would accept, but also then take over ownership of the maintenance responsibility. Sorry, thank you.
Everybody good with that?
It's a
That
great,
direction?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, okay, good. Those are your directions.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, don't you have
That's under,
oh, it's a separate item? On our agenda, it shows under your items.
oh, I'm sorry. We can take it up right now if you
Shows
wish.
under council members' items.
Oh, is it council member items? Oh, we still haven't agreed whether to put John's evaluation on a future agenda. It was brought up. The town manager reminded us that it's due. Do we need to pick a date?
All right, by the end of the fiscal year, so,
After the budget?
pick, yeah, after the budget, maybe the first meeting in September or
Yeah, I mean,
October.
it's
October.
a joint, I guess, evaluation and extension of the agreement, because the agreement is in 1-year increments. That's normally how we do it. That's how we've done it in the past.
I just want to make sure it got on the agenda, that someone's directed to put it on the agenda.
Right,
We'll do.
put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Right, council members' items, start with you, Councilman Allers, start on your end.
Oh, okay. A few things that I've got, I won't try to take too much time, but one of them was discussed with Roger a couple of times about, obviously, we've lost some parking on the north end of the island, and we received some feedback about not having ample parking. Kicked around an idea that I told him I would bring up as a council member item today, potentially using Bay Oaks and or the town parking on weekends and holidays for metered parking to increase some parking spaces. That's something we want to add to an M&P to discuss. There's a will of council to do that.
Be in favor of putting that on an MMP?
I think that's a great idea.
Just a couple of quick updates for John, since he had such a great thorough report. The bike marking issue, and for my fellow council members, if they didn't know, the bike marking issues like we have on Estero, that communication is still going on with the county. Obviously, FDOT's involved. There's several different markings that are available, so their paints and red tape, if you will, is still being worked on in the background, so that hasn't died. It hasn't gone anywhere, but it's still being communicated.
And I don't know if anyone's tested this, but I had one observation about the bike lane markings. That are they like the stripes that they get really slick when it's wet?
Well, that's one of their concerns. So in the readings that I've seen so far in the communications, it's been talk of grinding it down to make it more of a slippery space, if you will. But that is one of the major concerns that they have that they're hashing out with FDOT and their intercommunications. Another issue that talked about was the lighting. They are meeting, my understanding is they are meeting with the county this week sometime, town lighting is, to discuss some of their input as far as what they're looking for with the lighting on Estero Boulevard. We're all aware that that is a county road, not a town road. So in my communications with the county, it's been very clear that they're looking for us to make a clear and decisive indication of what we would like before they're going to give us any indication of what they would like. It's not the preferred way I'd like to do it, but unfortunately, that's the way I think we're going to have to go about doing it. So as that moves forward, just keep that in the back of your mind. I also spoke with Roger about this as John brought up in his report. Some of the issues that we're having with some of the ordinances, the e-bikes, for example, is a lack of knowledge from visitors, not necessarily our residents. I ran an idea by Roger that I told him I would bring up to you guys as well about potentially talking about on a future MMP, is creating some videos, a how-to video or a best practices video that we can share on the town's website. Obviously, everybody would have to agree on the subject matter of each video, but I'd be more than willing to be the face if that's what you want, or someone from the town. We do it through the work where I work, that we put out some informational video of new products that come out. I think it could be useful for people coming to our community that may not know that you aren't allowed to use e-bikes on the sidewalk. If we could just have a short 10, 15-second video about what ordinances are, just using that as one example, that maybe could be shared with the chamber through our town Facebook page, things like that.
You know, another thing, Dan, I like the idea. Another idea would be to come up with a well-produced brochure, because I know a lot of the vacation rental companies will put something in saying what the rules are. But if we can come up with something that's a little more informative, a little slicker, that we could, at our expense, we produce, and then allow the local agencies to leave it in the room so people have.
I think, you know, in this case, I think a lot of education would go a long ways.
And it could link to a video, it could have a QR code.
You know, we get a lot of, as I said, the ones that we do, we get a lot of links to it and a lot of questions that come up from it that people didn't know. Maybe this is available, maybe it's not available. We know people know that the beach is dog friendly, but they may not know that it requires a leash. So things like that, videos like that, the lights on the bikes, things like that, I think could go a long way to, if nothing else, if you reach one person, that's better than none. What else we got? The turtle ordinance, did we discuss that? Sharon brought it up as far as time is of the essence. That's something that we did agree or didn't agree that we'd put on the M&P to discuss if there's something we can do or do to take a look at that.
Can we add it to Thursday without it being on the printed agenda, John? I'd be in favor of adding it on Thursday.
Okay.
I would support that as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear staff's input on it. I think that, you know, her timeline might be a little vicious.
I just want to discuss it. I'm not taking a position.
Thank you. And then I had a few people reach out to me about trees and vegetation overgrowing into the sidewalks up and down Estero, as to who's in charge of keeping an eye on it, maintaining it. Some people are having issues with pulling out with cars, or they can't see around the vegetation, or bikes going up and down Estero. I know there was one south that was taken care of with cutting trees back, but I just wanted to make you aware of it in case you hadn't received any information from anybody about it.
We have a conversation with, the Sterile Project team on Wednesday. We'll bring that up and see. They've officially accepted the road, the completion of a segment of the road, and are ready to turn over the as-built or whatever to the town to take over, but we'll work with them.
Thank you. Then the last thing is, this is a very crucial week for the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual. Both the mayor and myself attended a meeting last week with Colonel Kelly from the ACOE as far as the plan DC. They're going to make their final optimization to the plan on August 4th. So anyone that is listening or still listening that could reach out, there's several different places you can go. There's already a communication email written through Captains for Clean Water, for instance, that you can go very easily click on the link. It'll go directly to Colonel Kelly. That will give them all the information. It's very important, I believe, in our region that we show a lot of support for this, because the way it is written now, it actually will be worse than what we're dealing with now. So anything you can do, every voice counts. And again, August 4th is the deadline for that. I have.
I'm going to chirp in too about this Lonesome thing, because from the analysis that I've read is it's supposed to be a shared pain essentially for this water for everybody, and that everyone's getting what they want out of this agreement, this version of the agreement, except for the Caloosahatchee. Kind of at the short end of the stick on that.
Right.
I can't tell you how disappointed I was when I saw it. It was unbelievable to me after all of the pressure that's been applied, that's what they came out with. I was shocked and incredulous, and I'll say it, I'm a little bit angry about it. That despite all of our efforts, that the Caloosahatchee is seen as the dumping ground. That's just not acceptable.
I can tell you that one of the comments that really stuck out for me from Colonel Kelly was at the end. He said he never expected to walk into that meeting hearing that Plan CC would be worse than what we're dealing with. That really resonated with me, that the more people we can let him know that we're not okay with that, I think it'll stay fresh in his mind when they make a decision to optimize this.
That was Commissioner Ruane's comment, was that this Lonesome see worse than the existing model that's in effect now, the LORS 08. Well, the plan that we've been working under since 2008, this right now in its present configuration is worse than what we're operating under now. So that's the problem. And it's this shared adversity that you talk about. Your idea of sharing is not the way we would consider sharing. But anyhow, there's a long way to go on this, and but I agree with Councilman that everyone should be commenting now, because the clock is ticking. But of course, there's going to be more discussions on this. It's an ongoing process and so forth. And but this is the time to comment. This is the time to comment, and everybody in our community and surrounding communities, everyone has a vested interest in this water situation here. Everyone, and so it's incumbent upon us to make our voices heard. Now is the time.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I forgot one little point to add to that, that it's very important to people that may not know, is that this, when it's adopted, will be a 10-year solution. So how that water comes down that river, this is going to dictate that for the next 10 years.
And for those people who I know are very passionate about water, who stand on the bridge and hold up signs and protest, now is the time. Now is the time to get your voice heard. Now it'll have an effect more than it will after this is adopted.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
I guess first I'd like to say I was a little disappointed when I got the agenda that there was nothing on the agenda regarding the massive house issue. I keep talking to Jason about it. I in particular brought to his attention, there's a new building going up near Aberdeen, which is, when you drive by it, it's like there's a wall along the beach. When I brought this to his attention, he informed me that not only that house was going up, but they had plans that had been presented to them for yet another house, which is even more massive than the one I was complaining about. Yet we still have not been presented with anything I keep asking for some modifications to our LDC to lessen that footprint somehow. We need to bite at this apple from lots of different directions. And I'm not seeing anything. So I just wanted to ask my fellow council members if you would please talk to Jason or Roger and let them know you support moving on this.
What about, I mean, just passed an ordinance on structure of the wedding cake and the kind of site, and those are options.
Those are options. And like I said, when we did that, we discussed we're taking bites at the apple from different directions. And the next step we could take would be the footprint issue. But we passed that all these months ago, and they haven't brought anything to us about the footprint issue. So
Not to interrupt your council discussion, but the land development code consultant will be here on Thursday, and I think that's a very appropriate discussion to happen at that point in time, and bring back whatever decision you may reach at that MMP as a result of that discussion for the second meeting in August.
I understand that. I just don't want to wait until we do the whole LDC thing. We're getting plans now every week for more and more massive houses. If we wait until we do the whole LDC, it'll be too late.
I agree with you, Madam Vice Mayor, and I do think that that piece can be carved out, but it's also important to have that in the context of the whole.
Sure, I
overall
agree.
LDC.
I agree. The last thing I'd like to mention, you probably found when you came in today, 4 pages from me, and you can pick it out because it's got some red type at the top. It's a City of Sanibel draft ordinance. Both Naples and Sanibel are looking into ordinances regarding the gas-powered blowers. They're getting louder, they're getting more powerful. They cause a great deal of problem for those people who have COPD and other breathing issues. We're already dealing with our red tide breathing issues. Landscapers show up, and I know they do it in my neighborhood. They show up with the blower, they blow the crap off of the house that they are working on onto the neighbor's property. And the neighbors are the ones breathing it and dealing with the intense noise. The noise is so bad, the landscapers are wearing ear protection. So it doesn't seem fair that the neighbors should have to put up with that. And like I said, we don't have a lot of homework to do. Sanibel's already got a draft ordinance that has been presented to their council. I'd like to know if anybody would like to instruct our staff to bring something to us.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you, it's not just the landscapers. I went out to, at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning. I go on Sunday mornings, and there was a homeowner out there blowing his yard at 7 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's not just the landscapers. So that's just courteous neighbors. Sunday morning to have to listen to.
One thing we could also do is Public Works. You could authorize them to maybe replace the gas-powered blowers they have with quieter electric blowers, do their job.
Not much quieter, because I've heard them at the end of my street
Well,
too.
if we do an ordinance,
Well,
town
the
staff would be required to comply with it. So,
Madam Vice Mayor?
yes.
Has everyone had a chance to read this, or you want us to just put it on as is, or you want to discuss it really quick on the MMP on Thursday, so when we bring it back for first reading at August 16th, it's pretty well cooked?
Since I've provided a copy to everybody today, it would seem to be good notice to the public for us to at least do a preliminary discussion on Thursday.
Be great for us too.
Yeah, I would agree. I haven't had a chance to read it.
No, I just gave it to you today. I understand that. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't violate sunshine. Yeah.
We'll have to call that the Hossafrost Noise Reduction Bill. Okay, James?
First of all, my apologies to Roger because I failed to bring this up on Friday at our meeting, and it was on my list of things to talk to you about. So I'll just kind of go through this real quick. I'm contacted by a number of Times Square businesses regarding a desire to update their lease agreement. There are apparently some very antiquated dates in the lease agreement. The trash pickup language is very antiquated. There's penalty language that they want to discuss revision of. And when they contacted me, I said, listen, I can't negotiate on your behalf. You need to reach out to the town and so forth. And apparently they reached out to the town. Apparently Chelsea no longer does that. Daphne does. And Daphne suggested to them, hey, you might want to go to the council first, have the council then direct the town manager and or whoever the town manager designates, begin those negotiations. I just thought I'd just bring it up today to get some direction procedurally on how you'd want to handle that, those discussions, because I think that it's a little bit time sensitive, and I think the lease is up in a month and a half, 2 months from now, or something to that effect. Just wanted to get your direction on that.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them and just ask them to mark it up. You know, they could meet, mark it up, and then send me what they would like to change, and then review that with John, and sit down with them and go over them and let them know, we agree to this, we can't agree to that, this is subject to negotiation, something council has to weigh in on or something like that. So we can kick off that process.
That would be great. Should I have them reach out to you directly then?
Just whoever their liaison is, reach out to me, be fine.
Sounds great. Thank you. That's all I have.
A couple of things I wonder if some of you want to put on a future M&P is the idea of enacting a condo recertification process in the wake of the Surfside condo collapse. And I'm not necessarily advocating this, but I think I would like to hear from people who are in these condos and discuss it with council. Because I've seen the dynamics of some condo associations where you will get condos, there'll be enough members who want to minimize expenses to the point where they can potentially put the structures at risk. I wonder if right now, I think we're in our jurisdiction, we don't have any kind of recertification process for the condos. And I know that John here has worked in jurisdictions that do. So is this something that the council would like to look into in a future M&P?
I'd say let's send that, because time is not necessarily of the essence, to the LDC review people. Ask them their opinion on putting it in our LDC. Give us some options.
Can add that to the discussion on Thursday.
Great. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have that conversation. Only thing I would suggest, and it doesn't preclude us from having that conversation. My guess is the state legislature is chomping at the bit to enact some broader state guidelines on this front, but doesn't mean we can't have that conversation. It probably is a good conversation for us to have.
I think the same thing. I think that probably in the wake of the Surfside, there'll be something coming down from a higher level. So, our island is the one that's really affected because we're so similar to what the geology of the Surfside. Okay. The thing is, the CDC recommendations have changed as far as COVID now, and I wonder if it's worth considering going back to our more social distance layout here until those guidelines go back. Now they're recommending even people who are vaccinated wear a mask indoors, something that we are right now not conforming to.
Thought about it this morning on the way in, that very question as to whether we should or not. And I'll whatever the council's desire is on that. Spread out again, that's fine with me.
You talking about it here in the chambers?
Yes.
I would just say that operationally for us, it's really not that big a deal, and I'd rather be err on the side of caution, as long as the council's comfortable with the optic. And, with respect to the audience, we can do like we did before, ask people to sit, every other space or every third space.
Masks.
And then, whether you want to require masks, that's be a third level.
And is that something that we can do based on what the governor has enacted recently?
Can do so voluntarily, but I would be hesitant to say that you can mandate it.
Mandate the masks. The spacing we could.
Spacing you can. And the reconfiguration that we had before, certainly that's purely operational, not prohibited by anything. Mandating masks, the governor's pretty much said that his executive order stands, where he said that no local governments can adopt mask mandates.
Well, I'd be okay with saying, which is reconfigure like we did with chairs and with us, and then recommend masks for people until the CDC guidelines change again.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, that's fine with me. A sign on the door recommending the masks. If you feel more comfortable, please do. Okay,
And I did send a proposal to the council about a workforce housing initiative. I'd like to kind of mature that a little bit. I just want to make sure that I have, in theory, council is on board with some kind of workforce housing proposal, the details to emerge later.
Definitely.
Okay, and when are we gonna, the budget, the preliminary budget add-ons, Roger, is that coming up?
So on Thursday, we will walk through the questions you have on the general fund budget, including the proposed add-on list, to see if there's any questions. If there's things that the council would like to add on that we didn't contemplate to be added on, or to perhaps think that we have maybe too many initiatives and maybe want to scale some of those back, or just the amounts they're in. I'll have that discussion on Thursday with the hope that all your questions would be answered by the 2 public hearings set for September and when we have our council meetings in the evening.
Okay, so that's a non-binding discussion we're gonna have on Thursday.
Non-binding, it's just a oral discussion. Hopefully, whatever consensus type of positions that are reached will carry forward, I would hope, to the following meetings, but not everything will be ready for a decision.
And is the council items, the policies and procedures? Is it gonna discuss coming up, or?
Well, I think, I don't know, John prepared them, so I'll let him address that.
Yeah, I certainly anticipated, and it's drafted in such a manner that you all can adopt them today, right now. We can put it there because, technically speaking, if you read the rules, they are written in the first person as the council. They're our rules, so, but you certainly can read the resolution title and discuss it. I can, to the extent that you want, I can walk through the changes. Many of them are just making it simpler to read, but there are a couple substantive changes that, particularly ones that you all directed me to make, and then some others that the overall direction was, hey, Mr. Herron, if there are some other things that you see there that need to be changed, please do so. Right off the top, just off the top of my head, is I put in there the provision that's now in state law that says that you all have to have 4 hours of ethics training every year in your rules of procedure. I also, off the top of my head, added, to the extent that I know you all already do know this, but I specifically say inside in the document that text are public records, not just emails.
Now, the one thing I was reading through this, and I would recommend a change, is to, instead of the email and the texting, I would use a broader term like digital communication and define it, because texting, you have, what is it, SMS and MMS, and there's WhatsApp and there's Facebook messaging and all these things, and plus it's dynamic, so there's always new applications coming.
I had the same thought, Bill.
Then we can simply, or any other digital or other electronic communication. And if that's the direction, you can adopt it as amended.
If someone still has a fax machine out there.
I do.
And then I know that, there's one place where you change accidentally to inadvertently, and the next line you did not.
Okay.
And also an update on the outside committees, because Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Program is now called Coastal Heartland National Estuary Partnership.
Okay.
And then is the metropolitan planning?
MPO?
Yeah, not that one, sorry, the regional, what's the regional planning?
The Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council?
Is that still active?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on life support, but it's active.
It's, yeah, because the same thing with the Estero Bay Agency, they were brought in as a voice, and they have a lot of really, incredible people on it, but they answer to the regional planning body that doesn't really have a ear on it either, I don't think.
While we're talking about the policy manual stuff, John, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for going through and fixing other things besides the thing we asked you to fix. One thing I had thought that maybe we might want to clarify, there's been some controversy lately and various times about how things got on the agenda. And that doesn't seem to be very clear to me. I don't know if anybody else feels that we need more clarity regarding how the agenda is created. And I know in the past, I thought it was in the manual, but I guess it's not. It's just been a tradition that the mayor always met with the town manager before it was published, just to make sure that everything was there that had been. I don't know if anybody agrees with me that we need more clarity regarding the agenda creation.
I think that's a very good idea, and I think additional clarity in writing would be very helpful.
I've been accused of having those meetings and I've never had one.
Well,
I would-
I think we did in the past.
Yeah.
Would agree, but not quite clear on how we go about doing that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to get the idea that everybody else would like to see it, and then we'll leave it to John maybe to come up with some ideas for us.
Okay, I will get with Councilor Veach to get his comments that he said, because he said there's one where I inadvertent versus accidentally, I didn't see where that was, but, and then I'll bring back the document with the suggestions of the council about how the agenda gets paired.
I had an
Anything
additional,
else?
there's a couple places, particularly on 344, where we start talking about colleagues, residents, and staff. Doesn't include a lot of people. Visitors to our island, for example, should be treated with courtesy as well. So maybe we should just say that we're going to be courteous to everyone rather than trying to name different groups.
I don't disagree. And as a general matter, when I draft ordinances, I say business owners, residents, and visitors, because that's pretty much covers the universe. But this was a document that was prepared, obviously.
Right.
And so if you wish, I can put businesses, residents, and visitors.
It's just a suggestion. And the other question I had is section 11 about the interview selection process for legal services. Town charter calls it the town attorney. It doesn't call it legal services. So I wondered if we were being inconsistent. On page 62, we call it legal services, whereas our charter calls it town attorney. So I didn't know if,
Can change town attorney services.
just to be consistent with the charter.
Okay, so,
It was great you gave this to us in advance because we've given you lots of stuff and you can bring it back to us, John.
We didn't make that.
I'd have other digital and electronic, with the text, an attorney, business owners, residents and visitors. We'll get the comments from Councilmember Beach, and I think that's it.
You still on this item or are you moving on? to
No,
another
still on this item, because another thing too, on the.
Because I have a couple thoughts, if you could. Go ahead.
And the guidelines for the quasi judicial land use hearing section on page 360, you say that persons are requested to state their name for the record. Are they required in the quasi judicial? They refuse?
Their names, I believe that you have the ability, particularly in quasi-judicial, to state who they are. Because that dictates to some degree their potential standing issues. Quasi-judicial is a little bit different because if there's a subsequent challenge, one of the first issues for the court to determine, and we potentially argue one way or the other, is whether or not the individual actually has standing. And unless we know who that individual is and where they live, we can't determine whether or not they're within, like what's the courts call the zone of influence or impact.
We should change the word to require.
I would recommend yes. Right,
It's item guidelines number 4. last line.
I can be, for the moment, lawyerly and say that asking them to, requesting for them to give their name is an appropriate form. Because if they fail to give their name, then I would instruct you all that their testimony should be given or potentially not be given as enough weight because you don't know where they live or who they are.
Sounds more confusing.
I understand.
Because sometimes it's not just their name, right? If they have a relationship that, like you said, is in the zone of influence, then that's something they should.
Well, but that's the point, is that puts the burden on the person speaking to not only identify themselves, but state their address and their location. Not necessarily on you all telling them, you have to give this information to us. It's a difference with a slight distinction, but easiest thing to say required. And if they fail, I'm still going to give you the person's still going to be allowed to speak. I'm going to give the council the admonishment that, because the person's failed to identify themselves and state where they live in relationship to the property in question, that you should consider that in giving in what weight you wish to give that person's testimony.
And I'm willing to defer to your legal opinion as to how it should be worded.
I concur, John. You're the one with the paper.
What I will say, recommend, is that we leave it as is with one change: their name and address.
Idea.
I found too on 352 this examples of voting procedure to not particularly be helpful in clarifying how the procedure works.
Inherited that.
I don't know if there's a more succinct way to say that as opposed to putting an example that muddies the water.
Else, Bill?
Would the gentleman yield? John, just
sir.
a couple thoughts. Number one, the town charter, which I know this is not what we're talking about today, but it's germane to our conversation, on our website, which is beautiful now, needs to be updated with the two referendums that have passed a year and a half ago. It's still the old language.
Before your terms and the.
Yeah, I will check because we provided that information to Municipal Code Corporation, which is our codifier. I'm just wondering if we haven't,
Maybe a disconnect.
our own have cut and pasted from, or not cut, really cut and pasted from Unicode, the new language where it should be in the charter already, and just put it over as a direct link. We'll do that.
It's the two referendums which impact the timing of the election of the mayor
course.
as well. And then more importantly, well, that's important, I guess, for certainly the public. But on page 345, remember the vice mayor and I pointed out a challenge that we had in one of our procedures a few weeks ago, and which caused this whole conversation. I think you've addressed it. And then I think you go on with point number 4 at the bottom of page 45 that I think opens up a Pandora's box and is probably not necessary. So let me just say what you've written, which I thought was excellent, which addressed the issue that we had the other day. You put in new language: any private, written, telephonic, or electronic communication about an agenda item must be submitted to the town clerk prior to the commencement of the town council meeting at which the agenda item is discussed, or it cannot be mentioned or read by any member. I think that would address the issue, and I think it solves the issue. I think the next point could cause a tremendous amount of problems because you're putting in our rules and procedures that says no member shall communicate, receive, send, or solicit any private, written, telephonic, or electronic communication during a town council meeting unless it pertains to an emergency situation, example, audio or video feed of council meeting not working, etc. We obviously can't control what we receive. So I think that's really problematic for us. It's also, there's First Amendment issues involved there. I think you've solved the problem with the language preceding that in a very effective way. And I would just encourage folks to consider striking 4 in its entirety, because I think there's a wide variety of problems that come along with that, not only from our end, but also the public's end. And I just don't know that that's necessary, because I think you've accomplished it in the first, or in the paragraph prior to that.
By limiting it to about an agenda item,
I'm sorry, ma'am.
you have accomplished what we needed to do by limiting the communication to an agenda item in item 3. So I agree with Jim that 4 appears not to be necessary.
Okay, we'll delete it.
Because you did so artfully do number 3.
Okay.
Although 3 says prior to instead of the meeting.
Right, but so what happened at the other meeting is that we got we all got an email during the meeting, the town manager or the town attorney, can't remember who, forwarded it on to us. And then it was discussed at the meeting. The public had no idea what was going on. They didn't have the document. So then it could cause tremendous confusion and put certain people, certain parties at a disadvantage. So now, as I understand your amended language in number 3, is that if we were to get such a communication, we couldn't utilize it as part of our discussion or consideration unless it was submitted to the clerk prior to the town meeting beginning. Is that fair? I think that accomplishes our goal.
May I maybe make a suggestion, is that we delete the first sentence of paragraph 4 and merge the comma unless into the sentence above in 3.
I think that's a good idea. Yep, I like that.
Sure, that works.
And then a long sentence, but
no, it's
it would read, any private, written, telephonic, or electronic communication about an agenda item must be submitted to the town clerk prior to the commencement of the town council meeting at which the agenda item is discussed, or it cannot be mentioned or read by any member unless it pertains to an emergency situation. I'll leave the parenthetical there.
I think that sounds great. And then on the next page, just a little thing, I think in the last sentence before the 1, 2, 3, emailing or texting anyone stating a position on an issue that will come before town council is particularly risky. I think that's a little much. I think if you said it's particularly risky unless, then you tie it into item 1, 2, or 3. I don't want to put in our rules and procedure that it's risky for us to state our position on a particular issue. I don't know, I don't think that's, I'm uncomfortable with that language unless, again, you put those other provisos in and tie it to that. I think that sentence standing on its own is odd. I think people expect us to take positions, and if we choose not to take a position, that's fine too, but we're supposed to say, I'm not going to take a position on that until the meeting or whatever. You just say it, but I think everybody ought to have the right to take a position if they so choose. Again, with the provisos that you've referenced below, which I think are certainly good counsel. That makes any sense.
Well, I think, it opens with a lot of can of worms. So like you said, you want to be engaging with the public. And sometimes if they're talking about an issue and you're telling them what your position is for that issue, I guess the risk is if they are polling other council members, or they're going to work as an intermediary and tell, Councilman Smith what Councilman Jones.
Agree, and hence the provisos that John's put below. I don't want to convey that it's risky for one of us to take a position on an issue in and of by itself. Again, you want to respect these other provisos that John put in here, but it's not risky for one of us to take a position. If we choose to take a position, if we choose to not take a position, that's fine too, and very admirable, and you can explain why you've not. But to tell council people that they shouldn't take a position on an issue, I think is odd. Just me personally.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
this is a very narrow subset of rules that apply to you all, primarily through either legislative enactment or through court decisions. They pertain to quasi-judicial meetings, and as the name implies, you're sitting in quasi-judicial hearings essentially as the judge and jury of the item before you. And just as in a courtroom, and before a judge, the judge can't or shouldn't be saying, well, I've read in the newspaper, or I've spoken to the prosecutor, and I've spoken to the defendant, or I've spoken to the plaintiff's attorney, and I've spoken to the defendant's attorney, and I think I'm going to rule this way. The idea is that you don't state that you prejudged the application, and you make your decision based solely on the information that you obtain through the public hearing process. And that's where, it's talking about, careful about making public statements prior to a public hearing on a particular quasi-judicial item, because that may imply bias. And the quasi-judicial hearings, you're supposed to be an impartial decision maker who makes the decision on the evidence and testimony that you hear during the course of the hearing.
And I now see that it's exclusive to a quasi judicial hearing, so I retract my comment. Your point is well taken. Yep.
You can speak to people, you can speak to parties on both sides of an issue and quasi-judicial, but you have to disclose them. And that's why we have the ex parte disclosure process before any quasi-judicial hearing.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you for your feedback.
Okay.
Oh, I had one last quick question.
Oh, really?
You're going to love this. I did notice that if you look at the current rules and procedures manual, there is an item 14 that says annual evaluation of town manager. Item 13, annual evaluation of town attorney. Did that disappear from this revision? Or am I missing something? I have an old one.
I may have, we will, I am aware of that. We'll put that back in. I for some reason was working off of an old one. If there's something we can discuss at the next meeting when I bring it back, if there's something that you wish to add or modify to that, then we can do so at that point.
That's fine. I did not see it included. Okay.
I apologize.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
But
That's fine.
I certainly didn't intend on making any changes to that.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, I'll just give my brief report here. Last week was a busy week for me in my capacity as your mayor. Started off Monday morning, I was here at 6 a.m. for a series of live interviews that morning in regards to the meeting that was to be held that afternoon, which was in fact held. And that was the meeting that Councilman Allers referred to earlier, meeting that the chairman of the county commission, Kevin Moraine, set up with himself and the mayors of Annabelle, Fort Myers Beach, and Cape Coral, and their various staff members, with Colonel Kelly of the Army Corps of Engineers, discuss this LOSUM CC program that he put forth. So, did in fact attend, and I brought Chad Schutz with us from our environmental department. I thought that would be a good experience for himself to get up on these issues and be able to put the faces to the names and names to the faces and so forth. And so that was very good. My input, Dan can attest to it, and I know Chad has already. My particular input, a lot of it was technically based prior to my testimony. So what I did was I got down to my point, my time to speak. I sort of brought people back down to the reality of the situation, of what actually happened down here, the result of the poisoning of our waters. I brought them back and reminded them about how the water went dead, how everything in the water went dead, and then the ramifications of that within our municipality, as far as hotels and restaurants and bars and shops and everything else shutting down. And I also reminded them of the fact that never in our history that I can ever recall that the Harry Chapin Food Bank coming down here to distribute food out of a window of a truck to our people down here. That's how bad it was. And on a positive note, I reminded them that there was a group, there were two ladies down here who started the We Are FMB program, raising money for those very people so they could distribute their vouchers to go shopping at Publix, for their $50 vouchers. So what I did was I tried to bring it back down to a personal level of, you know, they talk about discharges in cubic feet per second and this canal and that canal and everything else. But this is the really what happens, real life results of this pollution that when it occurs. So I think a lot of people in the room were glad to hear that. I spoke with Chauncey Goss afterwards, chairman of the South Florida Water Management District, and he was particularly glad to hear that because Annabelle, of course, experienced the same things we did. So that was that day, and it was very worthwhile. And of course, the Colonel Kelly from the Army Corps of Engineers certainly got an earful, but he's on that tour right now of getting an earful wherever he stops, and he's going to get it. So he understands that guy. And well, that was that day. And then, as luck would have it, I had previously scheduled a tour of the C-43 reservoir that's being built out on the Henry Lee County line. And so as I was given, and I brought Chad again with me, Chad Schutz, I thought he should see that. And so we were given a tour of that by Phil Flood, who's the liaison for the Southwest Florida Water Management District. He's the liaison up to Tallahassee, and he's the one who actually lobbies the legislators every year for their funding and so forth. And it's his job to take pals like us on these tours to make sure that they have our support as well. And I would recommend this tour to all of you if you get a chance. I've since started calling that the eighth wonder of the world out there. It's a mammoth project, and it's very impressive. It goes down State Road 80 for 6 miles, then goes in 3 miles. When it's all said and done, it's going to be the biggest freshwater body of water in Southwest Florida. They're creating a huge reservoir, which of course is supposed to help with it's one piece of the puzzle to help with our problems down here with the dirty water. They'll draw off of Lake Okeechobee, put it in this reservoir, store it, clean it up, and send it to us in the dry seasons when we need it, and hold on to it up there in the wet season. So that's one piece of it. And then also in this tour, Phil took us around and showed us other infiltration. They own thousands and thousands of acres, the Water Management District. It's be the envy of any developer in Florida. But they have all these other locations that are filtration locations. It's a very complicated system. Everybody thinks it's just the lake, it drains down and, the farmers draw off it. It's much more involved in that, the way this water is directed and relocated and so forth. And it's very complicated, but it's also very impressive. And the work that the Water Management District is doing is certainly very impressive. So would recommend anybody that can to go out and take a look at that. It'll be a recreational facility too, as well. There'll be fishing on the lake. There'll be boating on the lake. Around the levees, you'll be able to walk and bike around and so forth. And but it'll be an attraction as far as that goes once it comes online in a couple of years. It's a mammoth undertaking. The amount of men out there and women, of course, and the equipment that's hauling dirt and doing this and doing that. It's the eighth wonder of the world. as far as I'm concerned. But as luck would have it, in yesterday's Sunday news press here, there were two articles. One in the editorial section by Captain Daniel Andrews of the Captains for Clean Water. He wrote a editorial opinion about the process right now, the LOSUM project and the CC alternative, and addressing its shortcomings and encouraging all of us to respond to it in a positive way for us to the Army Corps of Engineers, which again, I recommend that everybody does that. And then on the front page of the news press was, which I was tickled to see, was an article on C-43, the reservoir that I went to go see. And that very building there is the pump house and so forth, and the levee that goes all the way around it. And so that is a very, if you haven't read the article, it's very informative about that construction project and what's going on out there and how that's going to help us eventually when this comes online. So it's, there are a lot of pieces to this this water puzzle, and these are just a couple of them. But there's a lot of angles being attacked from different ways here, and there is progress being made. That I'm happy to report that. I'm not the first to report it, but I'm happy to say that. And there'll be much more progress made in the future. But this is a very good start, And how this LOSUM CC plan, it's to go through this optimization period from the Army Corps of Engineers. That's when it'll be adjusted as we go along with it. But so hopefully they'll hear us, and hopefully they'll take into account our wishes down here, and we won't have a recurrence of 2018. There are no guarantees, of course, but they're out there. Different groups that are doing their best in advocating for what we all need down here. And it's incumbent upon us to keep advocating ourselves. So that's my comment.
A suggestion, I wonder if it's appropriate for us to use our information officer, maybe put out a call to action, including maybe some content information about who to write.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I mean, if she hasn't got this already,
Been done twice, and it's in our weekly release, email news release of, so we've been putting out information on that. We will continue for the comment period.
Maybe worth just doing a special kind of release. It's not focus on this
She
one
did
topic.
media release also, but we'll keep working on it.
All right, thanks, Roger.
and that's all I have. So if there's nothing else for the good of the group here, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved. Second. Objection? We're adjourned at 12:05.